Chapter 122. The Girl That Drives a Bentley, 2. Lu Ranran Wang Yu Zhongjing. When the guys saw them walking down, they immediately shouted, "Lu Hui, you are here." The luscious Lu Ranran smiled at the group of guys and replied, "Let's go, girls. Let's head out of school for a good meal. I'm feeling nauseous at the thought of canteen meals after having them for several days straight." That good-looking Lu Hui smiled as he spoke to them. Xiaoyu. When Wang Xian saw Xiaoyu walked out, he smiled and shouted at her, "Brother." Xiaoyu lifted her head and looked over. A radiant smile appeared on her face as she walked over quickly. "You are so tan now. I almost couldn't recognize you." Wang Xian pinched on Xiaoyu's face as he joked, "Who is tan? I'm not even a tinge darker." Xiaoyu rolled her eyes at him and grumpily pushed away the hands that were pinching her face. Senior. Xiaomi, Yuan, and Su Qian also came over to greet Wang Xian. This senior in front of them was a well-known figure. "All of you look tanner now," Wang Xian joked. "Let's go, I'll treat you guys to a meal." "Hey, thank you, senior." Xiaomi and the group smiled happily. At this moment, Lu Hui and a few other guys looked over in doubt and saw Wang Xian with sunglasses. "This is my brother and he's from our school too. My brother is bringing us out to eat." Xiaoyu smiled and said to Lu Hui. When Lu Hui heard Xiaoyu, he frowned slightly. "Xiaoyu's brother. This won't be good. Let's not trouble your brother. Shall we just go on our own?" Lu Hui smiled and asked. "Not at all. I'll get my brother to foot the bill," he replied Xiaoyu. Lu Hui opened his mouth, changed his intention and added, "Xiaoyu, let's not make your brother pay for it. I can bring you guys to Heidaleo and it isn't too expensive. Let this be my treat today." Since Xiaoyu's brother would be following, he could only choose to use another strategy and act more generously. This was to leave a good impression on him. "It's fine, let me do it." When Wang Xian heard his words, he smiled. "It's fine. How could I make our senior pay for us? Come, let this be my treat today," Lu Hui insisted. "Just let this be my treat today. I'm already starting to earn money." Lu Ranran flicked her hair, looking past Xiaoyu and Wang Xian. "Let's discuss this after we get there." Seeing them, Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. "Let's drive there." "Lu Ranran, don't you have a car?" "I have one too. 2 cars are just enough," Lu Hui commented. "Yeah, where did you park your car?" "I'll go get mine." Lu Ranran took out a BMW car key from her bag. At that side, Lu Hui smiled and took out a Benz car key as he pointed to the side. "Oh, Lu Hui and Lu Ranran, you guys are really rich. Could it be those with the surname Lu are all rich?" The few guys at the side spoke in envy when they saw them taking out keys to a BMW and a Benz. "I bought my car with the money I've earned." Lu Ranran looked to Lu Hui and said proudly, "Cough cough. This is a present from my dad when I made it into the university." Lu Hui smiled and didn't find this embarrassing. "Let me go get my car." Lu Ranran took another glance at Lu Hui before heading for the car park behind the dormitory block. Seeing that they had gone to get their car, Xiaoyu hesitated for a moment before adding, "My brother bought me a car too. I'll go get it." "Xiaoyu, you got a car too?" The few guys looked at Xiaoyu in disbelief and questioned. "Yeah, my brother bought it for me. Hee." Xiaoyu laughed and headed for the car park behind the dormitory block too. "Senior, I did not expect you to be so awesome. You even bought Xiaoyu a car." The few guys looked at Wang Xian and commented, "It was a gift from others. I didn't have to pay a cent for it." Wang Xian shook his head. "Oh, no wonder." The few guys nodded their heads. There weren't many students who could afford a car nowadays. Students like Lu Ranran and Lu Hui were part of the extreme minority. However, "Senior, you still look like someone incredible." "Oh, to me, Lu Ranran and Lu Hui are more incredible. They could afford to drive a Benz and BMW while they were still students. If I could even get one in my lifetime, I'd be contented with life." The group of people waited by the roadside, chatting as they walked. What are you doing here, Wang Yu?" At the back of the female dormitory block, Lu Ranran looked puzzlingly at Xiaoyu when she saw her. In their entire class and even the faculty, the two of them could be considered to be the 2 most beautiful girls. However, she realized that the gentle Xiao Yu, who also had the girl next door image, was more popular among the guys. This made her a little upset. Naturally, girls like to compare themselves with others. My brother bought me a car and I've parked it here too. Wang Yu smiled and replied to Lu Ranran. Oh. Lu Ranran raised an eyebrow. Not bad. As she spoke, she clicked on the key in her hand. The BMW 5 Series car sounded in front of her. I bought this myself. Which car is yours? As she spoke, her lips curved into a smile. Despite being a student, she had bought a BMW 5 Series with her own hard work. This was the reason why she had the capital to be proud of her achievements. That one. Wang Yu pointed to a car completely covered with a car hood. The car had been left outside for a few days. Xiao Yu wasn't willing to let it be battered by the wind and rain. Therefore, she had covered it up well. Let's go. Lu Ranran stole a glance and her lips curved into a smile. She entered the car, brought down the car window and smiled at Wang Yu. Wang Yu walked to her car, squatted down and started removing the car hood. A pink Bentley was slowly revealed. The car was elegant, breathtaking and grand. That distinct car logo B was so eye-catching. After placing the car hood in the boot, Xiao Yu opened the door and got into the car. Let's go. Xiao Yu also lowered her car window when she replied to Lu Ranran. At this very moment, Lu Ranran stared at Xiao Yu's car, completely dumbfounded. A pink teenage girl series Bentley. Bentley. It's a Bentley that costs $4 to $5 million. Her heart was shaken and her eyes were filled with disbelief. This is your car? Yeah, it was a gift from my brother. Xiao Yu nodded her head, started the car and drove out. Looking at the breathtaking and luxurious Bentley leaving, Lu Ranran held tightly to the steering wheel. How can this be? How can this be possible? Bentley. That's a Bentley. Lu Ranran looked helplessly at the car ahead. Compare? What could she take out to compare? That car alone would be enough for her to buy 10 BMW 5 Series. At the other side, along the pathway beside the female dormitory, Lu Hui drove a $400,000 Benz over. He lowered the car window and said to the group of guys, "Come, my car can fit 4 people at the maximum. 3 of you get in." Boss is really awesome. A Benz. Hee. The group of guys got in excitedly. Oh my gosh. Bentley. A pink Bentley. Chapter 123. Let's Be Friends, Tycoon. A pink Bentley slowly stopped at the roadside next to the girls' dormitory. Rivertown was considered to be the best second-tier city, but top-branded cars were uncommon. Especially a pink Bentley. This was the luxury car that all girls dreamt of. But 99.9% of the girls would not pin their hopes on it. Not many people could afford a car that was worth $4 to $5 million. At the very least, no one was driving such a luxury car at the University of Rivertown. Let alone the ladies. Hence, when the luxury car stopped by the roadside, it drew all the attention of the surrounding people instantly. What a beautiful car. It's simply gorgeous. Pink Bentley. Which girl is driving it? I'm dying of envy. A Bentley. A girl driving such a car is simply too striking. I'm envious. How nice would it be if I had one too? Must be an 80-year-old boyfriend gave it to her. Otherwise, how could she afford a Bentley? Envy and jealousy echoed in the surroundings. Brother, Xiaomi Yuanyuan Suqian, get in the car. Xiao Yu stretched her cute little head and shouted to Wang Xian and the rest. Xiaomi Yuanyuan and Suqian were not surprised. After all, they already knew her brother's capability. But the guys and the other girl were totally clueless. Xiao Yu was also a low-profile girl during military training. From her behavior, she did not portray herself to be a princess. Hence, everyone was dumbfounded when they saw her driving a car that was worth $5 million. Gulp. Lu Hui swallowed his saliva in his Mercedes as he gazed at the pink Bentley with his eyes wide open. Out of expectation. I never thought that Wang Yu came from such a wealthy family. This. He recalled how he'd flaunted his Mercedes car key just now. His lips twitched as he squeezed a smile on his face. Wang Yu, I didn't know that you're actually a princess. Hee hee. Xiao Yu giggled to him. She noticed that the people around her were pointing and taking photos of her car, so she quickly said, "Let's go. We better hurry up." "Okay, let's go now." Lu Hui answered quickly. Now he did not dare to pretend he was rich anymore. "Let's go." Wang Xian sat in the passenger seat inside the car. He did not ride the motorcycle away, as Wang Dehai would be riding it over. The three girls sat in the back. The other girl and a guy took Lu Ranran's car. "Brother, this is too high profile." When the engine started, Xiaoyu spotted that some of the students stopped walking just to view her car. They even took photos of it. For a moment her cheeks blushed. She had never been in the limelight since young. "It's okay, girls should be pampered," Wang Xian said with a smile. "Xiaoyu, you are so blessed to have such a brother. Others would be too envious of you." "Yes, Xiaoyu. You're too low profile. Just look at Lu Ranran. She can't wait to let the entire school know that she's an internet celebrity, earning $80,000 monthly, and owning a BMW. Su Qian said from the back. Xiaoyu smiled and said no more. She just wanted to be herself. The car drove out of the school and headed to the old street. After Xiaoyu parked the car, some of the guys crowded around her car with astonished looks on their faces. "Wang Yu, this is awesome. Too impressive. It's a Bentley. A pink Bentley. Gosh, I learned something today," a guy said in exaggeration. "Come on, it's just a car." Wang Yu smiled and shook her head. "Just a car? We could worship the car." A guy twitched the corner of his lips. "We thought Lu Hui and Lu Ranran were already impressive, but Wang Yu, you concealed yourself well." Several of them rattled on. Lu Hui and Lu Ranran at the side were looking embarrassed, but they did not say anything. When the gap between both parties was too huge, they lost the motivation to make a comparison. All they could do was worship. No way could they make a comparison. "Let's go. I'll take all of you to dinner. Later, you guys will sit at a table while my roommates sit at a table with me." Wang Xian explains this to them as he led them to the first-grade restaurant. "Senior, anything will do." "Anything," the guys quickly replied. The first-grade restaurant. When they reached the door, the guys took a glance and looked at Lu Hui. "Senior is awesome. Treating so many of us to dinner here could easily cost over 10,000. Lu Hui drew his lips as he spoke. Lu Ranran nodded her head silently and followed them in. "Director Wang." They heard the greeters at the side as soon as they entered through the door. "Okay." Wang Xian nodded and continued his way inside. The group of people behind froze as they were all stunned. "The first-grade restaurant is owned by Xiaoyu's brother," said Su Qian, looking at them. "Senior owns the first-grade restaurant?" All of them stared with astounded eyes as they were overwhelmed by the shock. First-grade restaurant. Looking at the fish that were worth millions on display, the amount of shock they received was hard to put into words. "Xiaomei, get the kitchen to prepare some dishes. Get us a big table for 12 people and a small table for 4 people. Prepare 2-headed abalones for each table." Wang Xian looked at Xiaomei and said. "Yes, I got it, Director Wang." The server, Xiaomei, nodded her head immediately. "Okay, let's go to the private room," Wang Xian told them as he led them to a private room. 2-headed abalone. Senior just took 2-headed abalones out. Gosh, they're worth $600,000. Gosh, we're going to have a meal that is worth a few hundred thousands. Hard to believe. It's hard to believe. All of them were stunned. Even Lu Hui and Lu Ranran were dumbfounded. The cost of this meal could easily pay for their cars. Xiaoyu's brother is a tycoon. Did you all see the watch she's wearing now? She just put it on today. Can you guys guess how much it is? Xiaomi lowered her voice and asked her with smiles all over her face. All of them looked over. Lu Hui was pondering. That brand should be Patek Philippe. Patek Philippe's watches should be more than a few $100,000. Lu Ranran continued. $880,000. Xiaomi gestured with her fingers. All of them went into silence as they slowly shook their heads. Impressive. I'm willing to shorten my life by 20 years to have such a great brother. This bunch of students finally understood who were the rich people and who were the tycoons. They stared at Xiao Yu as they could not imagine such an approachable and cute girl to be so filthy rich. First-class branded car, and a watch that cost nearly $1 million. Let's be friends, tycoon. Chapter 124. Princess Xiao Yu. In a large private lounge in first-grade restaurant. There were 2 tables in the private lounge. Xiao Yu and her classmates were sitting around a table. Wang Xian, Wang Dehai, Zhang Wen and Zhang Feng sat around the other table. Come tycoon. Let's have a toast. Wang Dehai, Zhang Wen and Zhang Feng raised their cups and signaled to Wang Xian. I had really not expected you to become so rich. If I hadn't heard it from Dehai, I wouldn't have believed it. Incredible. A million thanks to the tycoon Wang Xian who is treating us today. I have to eat till I can't even walk today. Zhang Wen and Zhang Feng looked at the dishes on the table and remarked emotionally. Wang Xian smiled and said, come, let's have a toast. It's fate that brought us together as roommates. Cheers. Wang Xian's table had started eating without holding back. As for the table beside them, Xiao Yu and her classmates had not started at all. Nowadays, girls like to take pictures of their food before they start eating. It was the same for some of the guys. There were also guys who weren't into this. However, everyone resisted the temptation of the food this time. They wanted to take photos before they start eating. No. Rather, they wanted to show off to others before they started eating. After we upload these pictures to our circle of friends, they will definitely be impressed. 2-headed abalone and Atlantic bluefin marlin for this meal? Hee. Xiao Yu, this is too extravagant. Thank you, Xiao Yu, for your warm welcome. The group commented as they took pictures and uploaded them to their circle of friends. Even Lu Ranran and Lu Hui, who came from well-to-do families, couldn't contain themselves and took a few pictures to show off. Come, let's take a group picture. Lu Hui stood up and said to the group. Take a look at our school forum. There are many people commenting on Xiao Yu's pink Bentley. Really? Let me see. It's true. There are quite a number of replies too. Don't just look at the forum. Take a look at our class Weixin group. They were talking about this too. The few guys commented and soon everyone took out their phones to check. In their class group chat, a student had uploaded a few pictures and added, there's a pink Bentley beside the female dormitory block. It's so stunning. Oh damn. Who's that filthy rich girl who could actually afford to drive a pink Bentley? Looking at the cup noodles beside me. Haze. Forget it, I'll add a strip of bacon. Who's that girl? Is she single? I'll pursue her. Comparing with others would only deflate myself. I was still considering the brand of bicycle I should get. Now, in the class group, the group of students were chatting raucously and sighing. The group around the table found this to be hilarious. Su Qian laughed and uploaded the picture she took today onto the group. Take a look. Who do you think this is? She smiled and clicked the send button. The group got silent for a few seconds. However, it exploded shortly after. Damn. What the hell? Why does she look a little like Wang Yu? She doesn't just look like Wang Yu. It's her. The owner of the pink Bentley is our class goddess, Wang Yu. She has hidden it too well. Wang Yu looks so approachable like the girl next door. Who would have expected her to drive a Bentley? Worship. I never expected our class to have a hidden princess-level existence. The group exploded immediately as the students couldn't help but sigh. Towards the end, even the school counselor commented. No one had expected that demure, cute and beautiful girl would be so incredible. Let's give them another piece of shocking news. One of the male students revealed a smile and uploaded a picture of their meal. Xiao Yu's brother is giving us a treat. First grade restaurant is her brother's restaurant. This meal alone costs over $100,000. That male student added the comment. Replies flooded in quickly for that comment. Perhaps they couldn't imagine the life of the filthy rich. $100,000 for a meal? They wouldn't even dare to dream about it. This is equivalent to a princess-level existence. The students sighed emotionally. After this incident, Xiao Yu had become famous in the class. In fact, the entire school might get to know about her in the near future. Wang Dehai and Wang Xian were chatting joyously while eating. Soon Xiao Yu and her classmates also started. Towards the end of the day, Xiao Yu's classmates went over to Wang Xian one after another to give a toast to him. No matter what, they had to thank Wang Xian and Wang Yu for treating them to such a luxurious dinner. The dinner ended at around 10 p.m. Wang Xian stood up and walked over to Xiao Yu. You will be having your off day tomorrow. If you'd like to tour around, take this card along. You could stay and play for free in the Summer Sun Resort with it. Wang Xian passed the family membership card of the Summer Sun Resort to Xiao Yu, as he wouldn't be using it himself. All right, brother. Aren't you coming with us to play tomorrow? Xiao Yu asked while taking the card from Wang Xian. I'll give it a pass. I'll be a little busy for the next 2 days and have things to attend to. You guys could go and have fun. Wang Xian smiled as he replied. I'm all right then. Xiao Yu nodded her head and didn't question further. The group headed back towards the school with satisfied smiles on their faces. This time, when Xiao Yu drove her car to the car park behind the girls' dormitory block, Lu Ranran went over enthusiastically and even helped her put up the car hood. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that she knew that Wang Xian had rumors with Lan Qingyue and Guan Shuqing, she might have asked for Wang Xian's contacts from Xiao Yu. However, after giving it some thought, she gave up on the idea. Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue were famous goddesses of the school. They weren't something she could match up to. When Wang Xian got back to his dormitory, he had a good night's sleep. He had not slept for the last 3 to 4 days. The next morning, Wang Dehai went over to look for Su Qian at the break of dawn. When Wang Xian woke up, it was already 10 a.m. After washing up, he went over to his medical hall. He would still prefer to take a look at the renovations of the medical hall. Moreover, there were still some things that he had to give instructions about before buying. Currently, Wang Xian liked to wear a pair of sunglasses while in school. It wasn't that he wanted to look cool to others, but rather that he wanted to prevent others from recognizing him. However, when he reached the entrance of the school, he still sensed a sharp gaze looking at him. Wang Xian looked over in the direction and was slightly surprised. It was a juvenile that was looking at him, that juvenile from the Sacred Followers Guild. There was also a middle-aged man beside the juvenile. That middle-aged man was skinny and wore a white shirt and a pair of gray pants. The middle-aged man was also staring at Wang Xian. His gaze was sharp and felt chilly. Wang Xian didn't pay attention to it as he continued walking forward. However, even if Wang Xian didn't want to be bothered by them, it didn't mean that they wouldn't bother him. The two of them headed straight to him. Wang Xian lifted his eyebrows and stopped. He looked at the middle-aged man and that juvenile. Hey son, how are you? The middle-aged man walked over and said to Wang Xian. Do you have something for me? Wang Xian looked at them and asked. Nothing. The middle-aged man looked at Wang Xian from head to toe. He shook his head and commented, it's just. If you have nothing, I have something going on. I'm not too close to you guys, so don't come and disturb me. Seeing their attitude, Wang Xian interrupted his words directly in a sharp and cold manner. After finishing his sentence, he turned around and left. Chapter 125. Medical Hall is open. Wang Xian ignored that fellow. He was even more annoyed with the middle-aged man. If both of them came with a good attitude, he would not have any comments. But all they did was stare hard at him and judge him from head to toe without any courtesy. People would have thought that this middle-aged man was a pervert. Wang Xian usually ignored such people. I don't care who you are. Who cares? The faint smile froze on the face of the middle-aged man. He darkened his expression and glared coldly at Wang Xian. Master, this fellow is too arrogant. Last time he even commented that the Sacred Followers Guild is trash. Too haughty. We ought to teach him a lesson. The juvenile by his side stared at Wang Xian as he spoke viciously. He bore grudges ever since what happened last time. He told his master about this since he was here. Yet his master's curiosity was piqued, and that was not what he had expected. After some investigations into that young man, the outcome took them by surprise. According to the information from the Sacred Followers Guild, he was not a disciple of the Sacred Followers Guild. Wang Xian might have inherited the medical skills from some experts unknowingly. Hence his master had a plan. Yes, he's arrogant. This lad probably thought he could afford to be haughty. Radiance flashed in the middle-aged man's eyes as he stared at Wang Xian. He thought he could be arrogant since he has ties with Qin family and Shui family. Heh. Master, he probably didn't know what we're capable of. Should we teach him a lesson? Coldness flashed in the juvenile's eyes. Sacred Followers Guild cannot be humiliated. No spirits or god could save them if they did. The middle-aged man displayed a cold look. Initially, I wanted to recruit him to the Sacred Followers Guild and get him to hand over his medical skill inheritance. Since he is so ignorant, I shall not give him any face. Humph. Master, what should we do? Upon hearing what his master said, the juvenile looked surprised. We must teach him a lesson. Didn't he open a medical hall? If that's the case. Radiance flickered in the middle-aged man's eyes. Some lads don't know what's good for them. We need to teach him a lesson. That's right, master. We need to teach him a lesson. The juvenile showed excitement on his face. Anyone who provokes Sacred Followers Guild is seeking their own doom. No spirits nor gods can save them. Let's go. We'll meet the people from the Yen family. I heard that the old man in Yen family has already attained half-step level, said the middle-aged man. Yes, master. The juvenile nodded and followed behind his master. Yen family was ranked first in the ancient martial artist family of Rivertown. They were the absolute ultimate existence in this town. Even though Yen family had retreated for 20 years and things had changed, they were still known as the first in the Rivertown. The rest of the ancient martial artist families could never be comparable with the Yen family in terms of their capabilities. Wang Xian came to the Divine Dragon Medical Hall and suggested some ideas to the renovation workers. Once the renovation was completed, they could use it immediately since they only used materials of the best quality. In addition, Wang Xian also got Old Qin and Old Shui to promote his business for him. Publicity was difficult for Wang Xian, but it was a piece of cake for them, especially Old Qin. Old Qin pulled strings for him. In the future, those eligible patients were recommended here for treatment if they could not get themselves cured in Rivertown's hospital. Wang Xian also fixed a price. Cost of treatment would start from $2 million. No money? I'm sorry. Please leave. The Divine Dragon Medical Hall is not a charity organization. No money, no cure. Wang Xian was not a Virgin Mary that would treat any poor man who came along. There were too many pitiful people around the world. If all of them need treatment, wouldn't he be tired to death? Hence Wang Xian laid some ground rules. 1. Treatment fees start from $2 million, subject to conditions. 2. No money, no cure. 3. Appointments need to be made in advance. 4. Open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. These 4 rules, in his opinion, were not harsh at all. They were achievable. Time passed by and Wang Xian just shuffled between the restaurant and Divine Dragon Medical Hall every day. The weather was rather hot these few days. Xiao Yu had been complaining to him how hot it was during their military training. Seeing her getting darker each day, Wang Xian decided to find a chance to strengthen her body with the dragon energy. With regards to his sister's future, he had some struggles. He wanted Xiao Yu to practice the Divine Dragon transformation with him. But Xiao Yu did not have the Divine Dragon bloodline. Wang Xian could not possibly insert his blood essence into his sister. If she did, she would be controlled by him. Then she would possess the mindset that she was under his command. Naturally, he did not want his own sister to do that. It was possible for her to practice ancient martial arts. However, he did not have the methods. What Mo Qinglong practiced was considered a devilish art. It was not suitable for Xiao Yu to practice. Whereas Shui family's art of cultivation could only be practiced by the men. Hence, he did not mention too much to Xiao Yu. After the Dragon Palace was built, there would be ways. The Dragon Palace had a treasure known as the Dragon Evolution Fruit. After eating that, one could transform into a dragon. When the time came, he would just need to ask his sister to take the fruit and that would do. Boss, all the things are ready. We can open for business tomorrow, said Manager Huang after he checked on all the things in the medical hall on the 4th day. Okay, done. Wang Xian nodded. All the renovation was completed. The medical hall was painted in green with wood furniture. Green represents wood attributes. Hence, Wang Xian felt that this was a suitable color. The entire room was very simple, with 3 beds and 4 chairs in the middle. The second floor had the exact same layout with 3 beds. I have invited those who needed to be invited. Tomorrow, the medical hall will be officially opened. Wang Xian smiled. If the medical hall succeeded in the future, the revenue from the first-grade restaurant could not hold a candle to the revenue of the medical hall. The medical hall was open for business the next morning. There was no stage or publicity. Wang Xian put 2 wooden signs on both sides of the medical hall. One said, "May the opening be a success." Another one had the Divine Dragon Medical Hall's rules written on it. The rules were what Wang Xian had set. As a Divine Dragon Medical Hall, there must be some style in it. The 2 signs before the entrance were very eye-catching. The pedestrian traffic was huge on the old street. Some of them looked at the medical hall with curiosity. Medical halls had almost disappeared in modern times. There were only pharmacies, healthcare services, and hospitals. But an ancient medical hall was rarely seen. Some of the people crowded around and looked at the ancient and plain-looking medical hall. A curious old man walked closer and read the fascia board. He then swept his gaze at the signs near the entrance and got a shock on his face. What does it say? Treatment fees start from $2 million. Subject to conditions. No money, no cure. Appointments need to be made in advance. Open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. What kind of medical hall is this, with the cost of treatment that starts at $2 million? Nowadays, people are crazy about money. Is a deity the doctor? It's so expensive. Chapter 126. Challenge 1. That's strange. Someone actually decided to open a medical hall here. Medical halls are rarely seen nowadays, although there might still be some in the rural areas. Nonetheless, isn't this medical hall a little too much? Treatment starts at a minimum of $2 million? Are they crazy? This is likely just their publicity stunt. Each of its 4 rules gets more and more absurd. They are probably just fooling around. Look, there's no one here to see the doctor. Moreover, I don't see any medicine in it. Outside the Divine Dragon Medical Hall, a curious crowd had gathered to take a look at this new medical hall. Looking at the notice board placed outside, every one of them shook their head. Disregarding the other rules, treatment fees at a minimum of $2 million could already deter many people. $2 million? What kind of illness would require treatment of $2 million? The crowd exchanged their views and quickly scattered. That old man that had joked that this medical hall was treating deities had also left after seeing the exorbitant price. Wang Xian sat in the medical hall and smiled upon hearing the conversations outside the medical hall. This was what he wanted to achieve. He did not wish that his medical hall would be as noisy as the wet market. His positioning had been set to focus on the high-end market. Brother Wang Xian, you seem to be in high spirits. At this moment, Wang Xian heard old Qin and old Shue's voice from outside the shop. There were also some family members of the Qin and Shui families behind the 2 family heads. Congratulations on the opening of your medical hall. 5 to 6 people walked in. They were all wearing smiles as they observed the surroundings. Shui Jing and Qin Lianhui each held onto a congratulatory gift, which they eventually placed on the table by the side. Wang Xian stood up to welcome them. I'm still waiting for old Qin and old Shui to direct some business to me. Haha, there's definitely business for you. Old Shui laughed heartily. I have introduced you to a few ancient martial artists. All of them had hidden injuries on them that require treatment. The directors from several hospitals in Rivertown will also be coming over in a while. They could also help to introduce patients if they fulfill the criteria. Old Qin replied. I really have to thank you guys then. Let's have a feast for lunch. Wang Xian smiled and replied. Just as they were chatting, a middle-aged man and an old man arrived at the entrance. Carrying the congratulatory gifts in their hands, they took a look at the signboard to confirm the location before entering. Isn't that the director of the number 1 hospital in Rivertown? I recognize him. He's incredible. That seems to be the director of the number 3 hospital in Rivertown. They aren't the only ones. The directors of several other large hospitals are all there. Who's the owner of this Divine Dragon Medical Hall? Why are there so many influential figures? With a dozen plus people suddenly entering a rather unique medical hall, it immediately drew the attention of many people. Passers-by who were initially curious about the medical hall were all shocked by what they had seen. Considering that the directors of several large hospitals had come, it was easy to tell that the owner wasn't someone ordinary. "Director Lee, you are here. Come in." As the group of hospital directors and influential people in Rivertown entered the shop, Old Qin immediately went over to welcome them. Wang Xian smiled and followed. These were all his guests and he had to rely on them to refer business to him. "Thank you, directors, for coming. I'm really grateful." Wang Xian went over and exchanged customary words. "This must be Brother Wang Xian. Indeed, heroes are often developed from youth. May your medical hall prospers in years to come." "Congratulations." The group of hospital directors greeted enthusiastically. Wang Xian smiled in response and exchanged customary words. He was clear that they were here because of Old Qin. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to invite this group of peoples. "Old Shui, I hope we aren't late." Less than half an hour after the arrival of the hospital directors, another group of people entered the shop. Different from the first batch of guests, this group of people had a unique disposition around them. All of them had terrifying powers contained within their bodies. "Not at all, not at all. Old Brother Duan, please come in." Old Shui immediately walked over and invited the old man at the front of the group. Old Qin turned his head over and greeted with a smile. "Old Duan, I did not expect you to be here. Just coming to take a look. For a miracle doctor that even Old Shui and Old Qin recommend, I naturally had to come and take a look." The old man smiled in response as his attention fell on Wang Xian. "Old Duan, welcome." Seeing how Old Qin and Old Shui had acted, a thought struck him and he recalled a family. Ancient martial arts family, Duan family. They were the third strongest family in Rivertown. As for this old man in front of Wang Xian, he was most likely the family head of the Duan family, Duan Guaji. He's a martial artist level 8 expert. This must be the young miracle doctor Wang Xian. I will have to trouble you in a while. Old Duan looked at Wang Xian. "Not at all, I'm doing this as a business after all." Wang Xian laughed, took a glance at Old Duan and thought to himself that Old Duan must have some hidden injuries. Haha. Old Duan was injured during a sparring session when he was young, and has not recovered since. "Brother Wang Xian, you've got to take a good look at it in a while. The Duan family isn't lacking in money." Old Shui joked. "As long as you can cure me, money isn't an issue." Old Duan waved his hand proudly. The ancient martial arts families in Rivertown weren't disheveled. The 7 to 8 families were often not seen or known by the general public. Moreover, there wasn't deep animosity between families. Shui family was on the rise recently and had formed a good relationship with the Qin family. During this period of time, things were smooth sailing for the Shui family, and the Duan family had chosen to maintain a cordial relationship with them. Just as Wang Xian was entertaining his guest, a voice sounded from outside the shop suddenly. "Divine Dragon Medical Hall? How arrogant. The Divine Dragon serves as our totem. Its prestige should not be encroached or infringed upon. A small medical hall dares to call itself the Divine Dragon Medical Hall? Inappropriate. It has to change its name." Instantly, the lively hall quietened down. Old Shui frowned and lashed out. "Come in. You guys sure are haughty." That's because we have the strength to back it." The voice sounded again and the crowd immediately looked to the door. There were 5 people standing at the entrance with 2 middle-aged men in the middle. There was also a juvenile and 2 young men by their left and right. The group of 5 people walked into the shop. They looked around arrogantly before turning their attention to Wang Xian. "Not bad. I can see that you have invited quite a number of people." The slim middle-aged man smirked and commented sarcastically, "The medical hall isn't big, but there sure are quite a number of rules. As for the medical skills, it's worth looking into, but you sure are arrogant." Wang Xian looked at the 5 of them emotionlessly. He knew 2 of the 5 people, and they were none other than the middle-aged man and juvenile from the Sacred Followers Guild. It seems like I should have added another rule for my medical hall. Wang Xian looked at the 5 of them and smirked. Uninvited people. And dogs are prohibited. Haha, great. What a sharp tongue you have. Wang Xian's words immediately made the 5 of them embarrassed. The slim middle-aged man looked coldly at Wang Xian. You are the first person who dares to be so unruly to the Sacred Followers Guild. There's also no one in Rivertown who dares to speak to me, Yan Zhongyun, in such a way. The sturdy middle-aged man beside the slim middle-aged man added in a cold tone. Sacred Followers Guild. Yin family. Exclamations sounded in the medical hall. Chapter 127 Challenge 2. Sacred Followers Guild. Yin family. To the people of Rivertown, each of them represented a supreme existence. In particular, one of the 2 medical sacred sects, Sacred Followers Guild. Any members from the Sacred Followers Guild possessed huge influence. Greetings to the senior. Those hospital directors in the medical hall revealed an appalled expression. They hesitated before they greeted him respectfully. No choice, the Sacred Followers Guild was influential in the medical field. They were so strong that even directors had to treat members of Sacred Followers Guild with care. This was the power of the Sacred Followers Guild. Yin Zhongyuan, Old Shui, Old Duan and the rest of the ancient martial artists fixed their gazes at the sturdy middle-aged man beside the members of Sacred Followers Guild. A burly figure with shoulder-length hair made him look a little out of this world, but none of the ancient martial artists on the spot dared to underestimate him. Yin family, Yin Zhongyuan. Both names were good enough to hold Rivertown in awe. Old Duan clenched his fist as he glared at Yin Zhongyuan with hatred in his eyes. But helplessness took over what was in his eyes. Yin family was too strong. Yin Zhongyuan's reputation was domineering too. Old Shui had mixed expressions. Eventually he took a deep breath and spoke no more. The group of ancient martial arts experts did not utter a word. Upon seeing everyone's shocked and respectful manner, the slim middle-aged man made a prideful gesture. Yin family, Sacred Followers Guild. Wang Xian gazed at Yin Zhongyuan and that middle-aged man with radiance flickering in his eyes. Both Yin Zhongyuan and the middle-aged man from the Sacred Followers Guild were staring back at Wang Xian with disdainful looks in their eyes. How reputable Sacred Followers Guild and the Yin family. Ha! Wang Xian was composed as he stared at them scornfully. Yes, how reputable. Old Qin swept his gaze across the directors and spoke slowly with a darkened expression. Those hospital directors dreaded the influence of the Sacred Followers Guild. The ancient martial artist families were afraid of the Yin family. But not the Qin family. No matter how formidable the ancient martial artists were, they were still under the governance of the country. Even the inborn experts could not do anything they pleased. Qin family, the family that had a long history in Rivertown, was not afraid of the ancient martial artist family. Of course, Qin family would not provoke them since it would do them no good. The middle-aged man from the Sacred Followers Guild and Yin Zhongyuan took a glance at Old Qin without saying anything. Both of them were not afraid of Qin family either. I Feng Huazi, heard that there's a little miracle doctor over here. So, I'm here to look around and spar with him at the same time. When I saw the fascia board on the medical hall, I thought it was inappropriate. I think the medical hall should change its name to Little Worm Medical Hall. Ha! That would suit it the most. Feng Huazi of Sacred Followers Guild jeered as he looked at Wang Xian. Upon hearing him, Wang Xian revealed a faint, cold smile. Does that mean that if I think that Feng Huazi is a bad name, I can call you Jiao Huazi? Asshole, you better watch your mouth. Your medical hall just opened for business today, and we are here to challenge you. If you lose, you'll have to smash your signboard and close down this place. In medical learnings, there's no first or last. But don't disgrace yourself when your skill is lousy. As soon as Wang Xian finished his sentence, a juvenile jumped out and pointed at him as he bellowed. Sacred Followers Guild is here to challenge. This is getting out of hand. Sigh, I never thought that this young man would have provoked the Sacred Followers Guild. We can't meddle in this anymore. On account of Old Qin, let's just stay and watch. The directors were exchanging conversations in whispers with awful looks. If it were not on account of Old Qin, all of them would definitely support the Sacred Followers Guild. It was all about the reputation. The reputation of the Sacred Followers Guild was like a towering mountain to them. Hence, they were in favor of the Sacred Followers Guild. If not for the relationship with Old Qin, they could have jumped out and reprimanded Old Qin just to fawn over the Sacred Followers Guild. The discussion among the directors might have been soft, but Wang Xian heard everything clearly. He frowned slightly and looked at Feng Huazi, whose expression was cold. He had an idea. His eyes were smiling as he said, "Challenge? How fine. Since you're here to challenge, I'll smash my own signboard and close down this place if I lose." As Wang Xian spoke, he slowly strolled to Feng Huazi and looked at him impassively. "But that would be too boring." "What? You still want to raise the stakes?" Feng Huazi looked at Wang Xian with sarcasm on his face. "Since you're here to challenge me, I will set the rules. If I lose, I'll close down this place. In addition, let's put a pair of arms at stake. Whoever loses will cripple their arms." Wang Xian stretched out his arm at Feng Huazi with a smiling face while looking at him fervently. Wang Xian would never lose. Even if it were a dying person, he could prolong his life with dragon energy. It would at most consume some of his dragon energy. If consuming some dragon energy could impair Feng Huazi, it would be worth it. Wang Xian stunned everyone with his words. Even Feng Huazi frowned. "Even your life is not worth exchanging my master's arms." A juvenile by the side glared at Wang Xian coldly as he growled. "Shut up." Wang Xian snapped at the juvenile impassively. He slowly sat back in a chair at the side, gazing at them leisurely. "Isn't Sacred Followers Guild compelling? You don't even dare to accept the challenge? And don't tell me how precious your arms are. Accept it if you dare. Since you're here to challenge, you can't be that chicken. Do you know you're asking for your own doom?" Feng Huazi glared at Wang Xian coldly. "Idiot, I don't have time for you. Since you're here to challenge, you might as well place a bigger bet. Get lost if you're a chicken. You said I'm courting my own doom? Why do you have so much fucking nonsense for a challenge?" Wang Xian stood up immediately as he spoke to Feng Huazi coldly. "SSS." The hospital directors around them drew a cold breath as they stared at Wang Xian in surprise. Guts, he had guts. If that man from the Sacred Followers Guild is here for a challenge, then Wang Xian is forcing the challenge to go on. They were unsure if challenging a Sacred Followers Guild on medical skills was considered to be brave or capable. No matter what, Wang Xian's imposing demeanor overpowered that man from the Sacred Followers Guild. Even Yan Zhongyuan knit his eyebrows, staring at Wang Xian doubtfully. Old Shui and Old Qin clenched their fists as they watched quietly. "Don't blame me for it since you want to die so much. Nobody can save you today once you compete with me on medical skills." Feng Huazi fixed his gaze on Wang Xian. He was infuriated because of Wang Xian's challenge. He was confident that the lad before him would never be his match. But he was angry at Wang Xian's dominating demeanor. He should be the one who dominated the situation. "Fine, since you agreed, let's begin now." Wang Xian chuckled. "Everyone here will be our witnesses for the competition. The one who loses will impair both arms. I think Sacred Followers Guild would not go back on their word. Otherwise, the entire Sacred Followers Guild will be shameful. You'll soon find out your outcome for offending me." Silver needles were flickering, giving off cold radiance when Feng Huazi rubbed his palms together. "Later, we'll impair your arms personally." Chapter 128, Challenge 3. Let's make everyone the judges for this contest. Does anyone have any issue with it? Old Qin looked at the face-off of Wang Xian and Feng Huazi, and asked loudly. "Sure. The winner of a contest of medical skills will be clear to tell." Feng Huazi looked past Old Qin and said plainly, "Medical skills are about the 4 diagnostic methods of observing, listening, questioning and feeling one's pulse, followed by manipulation, medicinal herbs and acupuncture for treatment. Since we are going to compete, let's start with these. Observe, listen, question and feel one's pulse." Wang Xian looked at him and revealed a faint smile. He knew nothing about these diagnosis methods and naturally wouldn't be a match in these aspects. Troublesome. Since we are going to compete, it's natural to cure the patient. That's the core of medical skills. No matter how great you are in these 4 diagnosis methods, it's useless if you can't cure the patient. Wang Xian spoke plainly. The surrounding hospital directors nodded their heads silently. These 4 diagnosis methods were frequently used a long time ago. However, in the current era, there weren't many who specialized in these. It wasn't that these methods weren't important anymore, but it was because of the advancement of technology. Whether a doctor was great or bad depended on if he could cure his patient. It was pointless to have other fanciful packaging. Alright, how shall we do it? When it comes to medical skills, you aren't a match for me either. Feng Huazi gave Wang Xian a harsh stare and said, "We have a few members of the underworld here today, and most of them have hidden injuries that have not recovered completely. Let's see who can cure them of their injuries. I believe this wouldn't be a problem for you, right?" Old Shui looked at Wang Xian before turning to Feng Huazi. Feng Huazi squinted his eyes and looked across the people beside Old Shui before agreeing. "I don't have an issue with it. I'm fine with it too." Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. "Since you guys are going to compete, you guys can use me for the contest." Old Duan walked out and stopped between Wang Xian and Feng Huazi. "I was injured by a poisonous palm strike 10 years ago. The poison has entered my bone marrow, and I'll have a day each month where I'll feel worse than death." As Old Duan spoke, his gaze swept past Yin Zhongyuan and felt a tinge of resentment. "I'm fine with the arrangement." Wang Xian nodded his head directly. Suddenly, Yin Zhongyuan, who had been staying at one side, spoke to Feng Huazi. "Miracle Dr. Feng, I believe we should find another person. The poison palm strike on him was dealt by me when we sparred." "Oh, in that case, let's find another person. Since this reckless man was injured by you, let's forget about him." Feng Huazi nodded his head. When Old Duan heard their conversation, rage welled up to his face. His eyes burned with rage as he stared intensely at Yin Zhongyuan. "What? Do you want another fight? However, if you lose again, it won't end so well." Yin Zhongyuan looked at Old Duan with contempt and threatened. "Puff!" Old Duan's face was seething with anger. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes and did not speak another word. "You guys sure are asking for a lot." Wang Xian looked to Old Duan and said, "Old Duan, I'll take care of your injuries. It wouldn't be a problem." Old Duan's body stiffened. His eyes jerked open as he stared at Wang Xian with joy. "Brother, can you really cure my injuries?" "Not an issue." Wang Xian nodded his head and replied confidently. "Thank you. Thank you, brother." Old Duan answered in agitation and his body was even trembling slightly from the excitement. At this moment, Yin Zhongyuan said emotionlessly, "If you cure the opponent of the Yin family, that would be equivalent to going against our Yin family. You have to think about it." "Oh, the Yin family." Wang Xian turned his head to Yin Zhongyuan and said with contempt, "So what if I'm going against the Yin family?" He. When Yin Zhongyuan saw Wang Xian's reaction, he smirked. Interesting. To see that there would be people willing to go against our Yin family. You will learn about the consequences soon. Is it? Wang Xian's eyes flickered and broke into laughter. He diverted his attention to the few martial artists and no longer paid attention to Yin Zhongyuan. "Is there anyone who wants to volunteer? Let me do it. My injuries were sustained during a fight in the past. My 5 visceral and 6 bowel organs were torched by the devil technique. I once sought treatment from a disciple of medical saint sect, but he wasn't able to cure me completely." A middle-aged man stepped out and flipped up his clothes. At the location of his stomach, there was a clear palm mark. The palm mark was filled with densely packed black dots and looked horrifying. Black rain palm. When Feng Huazi saw the injury on the middle-aged man, he was shocked. "Yeah, it is the black rain palm." The middle-aged man nodded his head bitterly. "What a creepy injury. That looks horrifying. What kind of injury is that? If he was sent to our hospitals, we wouldn't even know where to start." The few hospital directors exchanged gazes and were clearly shocked. They were discussing softly about the injury among themselves. Feng Huazi took a few steps forward to take a closer look at the injuries. Your injuries must have been sustained 3 years ago. The one who fought you probably hadn't mastered Black Rain Palm. Otherwise, you would have died on the spot. However, looking at your current situation, you wouldn't live longer than 5 more years. You are not able to engage in vigorous activities currently, or might not even be able to bend your back because of the injuries, which makes you feel unbearable pain. At this moment, Feng Huazi looked just like an intelligent old man. He stood beside the middle-aged man and explained the symptoms to him like a real master in medical skills. Yes, Miracle Dr. Feng is right. When the middle-aged man heard Feng Huazi explain all the symptoms he was facing, he became agitated. Miracle Dr. Feng, is this curable? Incredible. Just a look at it and he could tell all the symptoms of the injuries. He truly lives up to the name of the Sacred Followers Guild. His medical skills are so impressive. Miracle Dr. Feng Huazi's medical skills are godlike. This young man is finished. Feng Huazi's explanation was direct and succinct. This greatly impressed the crowd. Everyone, including the hospital directors and martial artists, were looking in awe at the confident Feng Huazi. This was why the Sacred Followers Guild was so powerful. Diske, my master is an incredible existence, even within the Sacred Followers Guild. When the juvenile heard the exclamations of the crowd, he got pleasantly contented. He looked to Wang Xian and said, "We will cripple your arms in a while. Just accept your fate without resistance." Feng Huazi revealed a faint smile and looked at Wang Xian with contempt. In a proud and demeaning tone, he continued, "I can cure this guy. Brat, what about you?" Everyone's attention had fallen on Wang Xian at this moment. They were all here because of Old Qin and Old Shue's invitation. With regard to this young man, they weren't too confident about his capabilities. After all, Wang Xian was too young. Now that he was competing with an expert from the Sacred Followers Guild, no one really had high hopes of his chances of winning. It was especially so after they witnessed the medical skills of Feng Huazi a while ago. It was really impressive. Even Old Qin and Old Shue were looking at Wang Xian anxiously, and weren't too certain that Wang Xian could win. After all, the one he was competing with was from the Sacred Followers Guild. If you were going to administer treatment, how would you go about it and how long would you take? Wang Xian didn't answer Feng Huazi directly and posed a question instead. I'll be using acupuncture and medicinal herbs. I'm confident of curing him completely within 2 days. Brat, just stretch your arms over. Think about it, I'll give you another option. I hate that mouth of yours. You could use your tongue in exchange for your arms. Hehe, that's a pretty good deal for you. Chapter 129, Challenge 4. 2 days. I can cure him in 2 days. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. The Black Rain Palm is the famous poisonous palm art. Yet, Miracle Dr. Feng could treat this in 2 days. Is this the Sacred Followers Guild? They are really skillful. Miracle Dr. Feng, I have an internal illness. Can you take a look later on? What Feng Huazi said evoked emotions within those martial artists who were suffering from severe illnesses. If injuries sustained from Black Rain Palm can be healed within 2 days, that means their injuries could be treated easily. As for Wang Xian, they did not think Wang Xian was as capable as Miracle Dr. Feng. They were almost certain he would win the competition. Wang Xian, are you confident? Asked Old Qin and Old Shue with worry and mixed expressions. Wang Xian peered over his shoulder and gave them an assuring look. He beamed at the haughty Feng Huazi and said, I love your arms though. After speaking, he turned back to the middle-aged man who suffered injuries from the Black Rain Palm. Sir, please follow me. 5 minutes. 5 minutes at most. Wang Xian threw a smiley glance at the middle-aged man before he walked up the stairs. The middle-aged man was stunned as he revealed a shocked expression when he looked at Wang Xian. 5 minutes. When Old Shue heard Wang Xian, his eyes were glowing. Gao Cheng, follow him. Yes, Old Shue. The middle-aged man's expression changed before he followed behind Wang Xian. What's going on? Can he really treat Gao Cheng in 5 minutes? No way, Black Rain Palm is a vicious palm art. To survive under the attack of this palm art is considered lucky. What can he do in 5 minutes? Everyone was in disbelief. Everyone knew how formidable the Black Rain Palm was. Hence, no one believed that injuries could heal in 5 minutes. He's playing tricks. Feng Huazi stared coldly at Wang Xian. He would never believe Wang Xian when he said he could treat the Black Rain Palm in 5 minutes. Even if it were Feng Huazi, he would need to consume some precious herbs before the injuries could heal. If he dares to play any tricks, we can just simply break his arms, Yan Zhongyuan said impassively, disregarding everyone in the room. Feng Huazi smiled and nodded as he waited quietly. Thump! 5 minutes passed very fast. Everyone looked over as soon as they heard the footsteps coming down the stairs. Wang Xian put on a smiling face as he walked down. Gao Cheng was following behind him with thrill and disbelief on his face. Incredible! It was incredible! Feng Huazi knit his eyebrows slightly as he stared at Gao Cheng. What's going on? A hospital director whispered and asked puzzledly. Feng Huazi of the Sacred Followers Guild, come over. Let me break your arms. Wang Xian widened his lips with a taunting look. Her. Everyone was caught by surprise as they looked suspiciously at Wang Xian and Gao Cheng. Seeing that everyone's attention was gathered on him, Gao Cheng could not hide his excitement and exclaimed loudly, I've recovered. I'm fully recovered. This is impossible. Feng Huazi glared at Gao Cheng and gritted his teeth. This is totally impossible. If both of you dare to play any trick on me, don't blame me for being ruthless. It's somewhat impossible to recover in 5 minutes. Did they collude? Even so, they can't deceive the Sacred Followers Guild and Yan Zhongyuan. Not only did Feng Huazi find it hard to believe, but the rest of the people did too. This is great. I really recovered. Gao Cheng lifted his shirt up, revealing his belly where the trace of Black Rain Palm had disappeared. How did it happen? It really disappeared. Gone. It's gone. 5 minutes. 5 minutes was all it took to treat the Black Rain Palm. Everyone was looking at Gao Cheng's belly in disbelief. Oh, it was healed. Too fascinating. Haha, look. I really recovered. I finally recovered from the injury that has been torturing me for 3 years. As Gao Cheng exclaimed, he patted his stomach with excitement. There's no such thing as impossible. You're just a piece of trash. You still have the cheek to challenge with that petty skill of yours? Wang Xian sneered at Feng Huazi. Now, can we fulfill our bet? Impossible. I don't believe you can treat the Black Rain Palm within 5 minutes. No way. He exclaimed in disbelief. Seeing that Gao Cheng had fully recovered, Feng Huazi was looking dreadful. Absolutely impossible. No way. Why not? Miracle Dr. Wang deserves his name. He purged the toxic of the Black Rain Palm with his hand in 5 minutes. Look, look. Gao Cheng rebuked in a loud voice as if he was a loyal fan of Wang Xian. His body jerked as he released an imposing vibe of a martial artist. Haha, my cultivation is restoring rapidly after I recovered. Within days, I will be able to return to my peak condition. He really recovered. It's confirmed. He's recovered. 5 minutes. He used only 5 minutes to treat Gao Cheng. He's more formidable than the Sacred Followers Guild. Where did this mysterious young man learn his medical skills from? He is highly proficient in it. The crowd was witnessing the entire incident with shocked faces. Some were surprised, some were exclaiming in disbelief. The rest had respect for Wang Xian from the bottoms of their hearts. The hospital directors were looking at Wang Xian with great admiration in their eyes. In medical learning, there is no first nor last. Whoever possesses the skill will win. Wang Xian, with a skill that surpassed the Sacred Followers Guild, was worthy of their respect. Let's materialize the bet now. Wang Xian looked at Feng Huazi and said coldly, given the reputation of the Sacred Followers Guild, I'm sure you will not go back on your word. Feng Huazi had a mixed expression with a slight tinge of fear in his eyes. The bet was to cripple both arms. He trembled, as he did not expect he would lose to a miserable extent. But Feng Huazi dared not go back on his word because of the reputation of the Sacred Followers Guild. He believed the other party would spread the word once he broke his promise. By then, the Sacred Followers Guild would cripple him without any helping hands. No one can humiliate the Sacred Followers Guild. Yin Zhongyuan darkened his expression gradually. It was beyond his expectations that Feng Huazi would lose to a nobody. He had followed Feng Huazi here because Feng Huazi saved the old man and his family. He did not anticipate such a situation now. Give me face and let this matter rest. Yin Zhongyuan lifted his chin and looked at Wang Xian. I can forgive your ill manners just now. Give the Yin family face. As Yin Zhongyuan spoke, he exuded a powerful vibe from his body. Everyone around him took a deep breath. Yin Zhongyuan spoke for the Yin family. He was protecting Feng Huazi. In Rivertown, the Yin family could not be stopped. Scram! Chapter 130 Return of the King. Scram! Wang Xian shouted and his voice exploded in the medical hall. When Wang Xian finished his word, the entire medical hall quietened down. They were looking at Wang Xian in shock. The one he was chiding was from the Yin family. When Yin Zhongyuan heard his words, his face stiffened and his expression turned heavy gradually. He stared at Wang Xian with killing intent. I dare. Repeat. Yourself. Yin Zhongyuan gritted his teeth and threatened word by word. Can't understand the human language. Wang Xian replied in the same manner coldly, but with the intention of mocking Yin Zhongyuan. The atmosphere in the medical hall chilled rapidly. Everyone held their breath as they witnessed this shocking scene. Seeing this, Old Qin said with an angry expression, a loss is a loss. Could it be that you are trying to impose your will on others? He looked to the few hospital directors and his eyes were filled with displeasure. The hospital directors were stunned and understood that Old Qin wasn't pleased with how they had reacted previously. One of them gritted his teeth and said, a contest of medical skills shouldn't be affected by age and authority. The winner has the right to decide the fate of the loser. These rules have to be followed. Yes. The other hospital directors seconded and nodded their heads. This group had no personal view and would go whichever way the situation dictated. Now that Feng Huazi had lost, they naturally knew where they should stand. As for the rest of the martial artists, they didn't speak a word. Nonetheless, all of them had their attention on Feng Huazi, Yin Zhongyuan and his clique. What they were implying was crystal clear. The rules were the rules and the Yin family still did not possess the strength to break them. With the Qin family around, the Qin family would at least have the right to speak up. Great, great. Yin Zhongyuan looked across coldly before landing on Wang Xian. Just you wait. Now that you've offended the Yin family, I'll let you know what is worse than death. Can you represent the Yin family? Wang Xian smiled and stared at Yin Zhongyuan. What I've said are the words of the Yin family. If you dared to touch Miracle Dr. Feng Huazi today, I guarantee the Bohai Sea would have another corpse. Yin Zhongyuan threatened. All right, understood. Wang Xian nodded his head. Brat, if you dared to touch my master, you wouldn't even know how you die. The juvenile behind Feng Huazi stared at Wang Xian with his bloodshot eyes. He had also not expected his master to have lost to this brat. Wang Xian looked emotionlessly at the juvenile before turning to the silent Feng Huazi. He mocked, stretch out your arms. Otherwise, I'll publicize this throughout the underworld and let others determine how reputable the Sacred Followers Guild is. You. Feng Huazi stared fiercely at Wang Xian. He had not expected Wang Xian to be still thinking of touching him after Yin Zhongyuan had threatened him. Yin Zhongyuan heard Wang Xian. His expression turned even colder and he gave him a death stare. The complexion of the juvenile by the side had turned pale. I guess I have to do it myself. Wang Xian added as he stretched his hands over and placed them on Feng Huazi's arms. Feng Huazi's body shivered slightly. The consequences aren't something you can bear. Yin Zhongyuan stared at Wang Xian and reminded him. Wang Xian was unmoved. He smiled radiantly and stared at Feng Huazi. You wouldn't dare. I Feng Huazi have cured countless experts. If you dared to cripple me. Feng Huazi rambled on with a hideous look. However, before he could complete his sentence, he gradually lost all feeling in his arms. His face stiffened and fear gripped him. If I crippled you, Wang Xian smiled and continued staring at him. Then as a doctor you wouldn't be able to use your arms anymore. In the future, you would have to use your legs to administer acupuncture for others. Yeah, that would be an incredible scene. Wang Xian gradually retracted his arms as he spoke. He smiled and looked across the group. I won't be sending you guys off then. How dare you really crippled my arms? How dare you? Feng Huazi's body shivered vigorously. To his horror, he could no longer sense the existence of his arms. It was as though they had been wiped off unknowingly. This sent a chill down his spine. If the arms were crippled by the common way, he still could rely on his medical skills to restore them quickly. However, he couldn't sense what the issue was with his arms at all currently. In fact, he couldn't even sense his arms. Great! You are still the first one who wouldn't show respect to the Yan family. Yan Zhongyuan clenched his fist tightly, smirked and stared at Wang Xian. Not going off? What are you still staying for? Wang Xian looked at them and mocked. My arms. I'll remember this. Feng Huazi stared at Wang Xian. His face had turned a little pale as he turned around and left. You better remember it. Your arms can't be cured. Rest assured. My medical techniques in the field of osteopathy are still very good. Wang Xian added this in bad taste as he saw the back view of Feng Huazi leaving. Feng Huazi stumbled and almost fell to the ground if not for the juvenile beside him who held on to him. Hee. Wang Xian laughed and had a satirical smile. Brother Wang Xian, you just offended the Sacred Followers Guild and Yin family completely. You have to be careful from now on. Seeing that Feng Huazi and the group had left, Old Qin reminded in a solemn tone. Yin family. Wang Xian's eyes shimmered and revealed a smirk. Yin family's strength is truly terrifying. Even if all the other ancient martial arts families allied together, they wouldn't be as strong as the Yin family. An old member of Yin family reached martial artist level 9 20 years ago. He's probably even stronger now. Now that you have offended the Yin family, things will get troublesome. Old Shui spoke with a heavy heart. When he had just arrived at Rivertown, Yin family was already a great and giant force in Rivertown. If he had to go against the Yin family, he would have no confidence at all. Just a few days ago, the Yin family announced that they would be returning. They have invited all the martial artists of the underworld to attend the Yin family's banquet in 2 more days. Although it was said to be a banquet, it is also a form of declaration. A declaration of their return. They are announcing to all that the King of Rivertown will be returning. I dare to bet that during this banquet, they will show their strength and even resort to violence to warn the rest. Moreover, the ancient martial arts families in Rivertown will experience a major reshuffling when the time comes. There will probably be many families who would choose to go under the umbrella of the Yin family. At the side, old Duan added with a solemn face. He'd had conflicts with the Yin family previously. Now that the Yin family was returning, it would definitely be a huge blow to the Duan family. Reshuffling. Old Shui heaved a sigh. When he knew that the Yin family would be returning, he immediately invited Old Qin and Wang Xian. This was done in the hope of strength in numbers, and to deal with the changes happening to Rivertown in the future. Looking at it now, everything was hard to tell. The day after tomorrow. Wang Xian heard their conversation and a faint smile appeared on his face. Announcing the return of the King of Rivertown for the future. In that case, Wang Xian would like to make an announcement too. The descent of the king. As to who would be the real king, he would really like to know. Chapter 131 Choice. Wang Xian, do you want to go into hiding for the time being? Old Qin suggested in the medical hall as he was worried when he saw Wang Xian deep in thought. Wang Xian was back from his daze. He shook his head and grinned. Just a Yin family. Since they are announcing the return of the king, I'll check them out the day after tomorrow to see how the king returns. As he spoke, he widened a suggestive smile on his face. Old Qin was startled, while Old Shui was looking at Wang Xian stunned. Okay, after a morning of eventful happenings, it's noon now. I'll treat everyone to the first-grade restaurant for lunch. Anyone who needs treatment can queue up in the afternoon. Wang Xian changed the subject and beamed at everyone. Miracle Dr. Wang, we should be the ones who buy you lunch. Yes, we should. Let's go. We can have our lunch first and wait to get treated. It's not urgent now. The surrounding martial artists answered readily. All of them suffered from internal injuries. Since they'd finally met such a skillful doctor, they must show their respect and enthusiasm. Given that they were not some powerful martial artists, it would be extremely difficult to invite doctors from the Sacred Followers Guild or Medical Saints sect to treat them. They might not have many doctors, but each of them had a strong network. They would ignore those who did not have a background or could not afford their medical fees. Even for old Duan, he could not invite the Sacred Followers Guild or the Medical Saints sect to treat his injuries. This was also their proud capital. It's okay. I own the restaurant next door. I'll buy everyone lunch to thank you all in advance for referring business to me in the future. Wang Xian chuckled and brought them to the first-grade restaurant for a delicious treat. A total of 5 martial artists required treatment in the afternoon. Among them, old Duan had the most severe injury. Hence, Wang Xian consumed much of his dragon energy. The other 4 were treated easily. Thanks, Wang Xian. Thank you. Let me know if you need any help in the future. After old Duan recovered from his injury, he was full of gratitude. You're welcome. I was paid. No need to thank me. Wang Xian waved him off. But sometimes money cannot necessarily cure my injury. I still have to thank you. Old Duan bowed and said with gratitude. You can come back to me again if you need any help, said Wang Xian as he lifted old Duan up. Then, I shall not disturb you further. Old Duan nodded and left after a few polite remarks. Wang Xian was grinning as he looked at the medical hall after everyone left. The medical hall makes the most profitable business. Wang Xian exclaimed. He had received a total of 35 million for his medical fees after treating 5 people. Out of that, 20 million came from old Duan, as he consumed much more dragon energy. Those who were treated, including old Duan, wanted to befriend Wang Xian after they had seen his formidable skills. This allowed Wang Xian to realize the benefits of being a skillful doctor. The Sacred Followers Guild is so prideful and arrogant because they have a powerful network. Just Feng Huazi alone can get Yan family to strike for them. How strong can the entire Sacred Followers Guild be? When Wang Xian thought of the vicious look on Feng Huazi's face, he knew he had completely fallen out with him and the Sacred Followers Guild. Regardless of Sacred Followers Guild and the Yan family, so long as you provoke me. Radiance flickered in Wang Xian's eyes. He had made a decision. First, he would get rid of the Yan family. A week is over. I should be back in school. Wang Xian was sitting down, pondering over some thoughts. When he looked at the time, it was already 5 o'clock. He stood up slowly and went back to school. His 1-week leave was up after spending 3 days in the sea and 4 days in the medical hall. But still, Wang Xian could not attend school because he would have to stay in the medical hall. When he was back in school, surrounded by students with hands full of books, Wang Xian suddenly felt that he was not of the same world as these people. Buzz! Buzz! At this time, Wang Xian's phone rang. He took it out and froze after looking at it. 2 messages from 2 people. One was Guan Shuqing and the other was Lan Qingyue. The messages had similar content, asking if he was in school and if he wanted to have dinner together. Wang Xian hesitated as he was unsure of how to reply to their messages. He could not possibly go out with the 2 of them. Should he reject both? In that case, he would feel apologetic to the 2 girls. Hey, isn't that Wang Xian? The guy who was fancied by the 2 goddesses, Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue? Yes, how lucky he is to have earned the hearts of the 2 beautiful goddesses. I wonder who he will choose. Should be Lan Qingyue. After all, she had an influential family background. If he marries Lan Qingyue, he can enjoy the rest of his life. That's true. Guan Shuqing pales in her family background. Otherwise, she's not a bad choice. There's a post on the school forum about who Wang Xian will pick in the end. Guan Shuqing had more than 1,000 supporters, while Lan Qingyue had over 5,000 supporters. After all, Lan Qingyue has a better family background. Suddenly, Wang Xian overheard the 2 girls whispering next to him. Wang Xian was stunned. The school forum's post. He frowned deeply as he fished out his phone. Indeed, there was a post regarding his choice between Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue. When he saw the post, he was not feeling prideful at all. Instead, a dreadful look surfaced on his face. He had not felt the way he did now when the people in the school forum called him a scumbag. That was because he did not care about his own reputation. But now 2 girls were involved. Getting all the finger-pointing would upset the 2 girls. In particular, Guan Shuqing. After all, he and Guan Shuqing shared a long history. Who? Wang Xian took a deep breath. He fancied Guan Shuqing. Lan Qingyue too. Forget it. Not many people were infatuated. Wang Xian was not one of them either. But he knew that he had to make a choice. Wang Xian took out his phone. He hesitated before he replied to Guan Shuqing. Sure, where are you? I'll look for you. Then he looked at Lan Qingyue's message and replied, Hey, I'm having dinner with Guan Shuqing tonight. Sorry. A choice. Tough decision. But this was a choice he needed to make. If not, what else could he do? Make both of them his girlfriends. Would they agree? Date both of them together? Wouldn't they mind? Heartbroken. Apparently, it was not easy to date both girls. If he did not make the decision when he needed to, he would suffer the consequences. So he chose Guan Shuqing, whom he was very fond of and had been together with him for a longer time. Chapter 132 Mr. Feng. Did he choose Guan Shuqing? In one of the rooms of the girls' dormitory block, Lan Qingyue's already pale face was filled with misery. I just need a hug and some comforting words right now, but who would have expected? Although I have thought of the possibility of you choosing him, why does it have to be right now? Lan Qingyue was in a daze and her complexion was as white as a sheet. Wang. At this moment her phone rang. She saw that it was from her dad as she picked it up in a daze. Qingyue, we need you back to handle the company matters. If we can't get past this hurdle, our Lan family will be in deep trouble. The solemn voice of her father sounded from the other end of the phone. Lan Qingyue was hesitating. Dad, why don't I just drop out of school and focus on managing the family business? Lan Qingyue's father pondered for a moment before replying slowly. All right. You wouldn't really learn anything from school anyway. It's fine if you are coming back to manage the company in advance. Yeah. Lan Qingyue was a genius. When she was 14 years old, she demonstrated exceptional business acumen. At that time, she followed her grandparents and stayed within the company for the majority of the days. Gradually, through learning and understanding, her talents in business were quickly developed. When she was 17 years old, she was already able to complete a project on her own. Lan Qingyue's performance greatly shocked everyone in the Lan family. Subsequently, the master of the Lan family decided that he would hand over the Lan family's business to Lan Qingyue for management. After a few years, she had further consolidated her position as the successor of the family business. However, it wasn't that simple to manage a family corporation with a market capitalization of close to $10 billion. After hanging up the phone, she looked around her room blankly and flipped through some photographs in her phone gallery. Do I not have any chance now? A teardrop flowed out slowly from her eyes. Lan Qingyue rested her head and arms on the table, and her shoulders were shaking slightly from sobbing. Oh, isn't that Guan Shuqing and Wang Xian? They are eating together again. Yeah, look, they are really intimate. Could it be that Wang Xian has gotten together with Guan Shuqing? Really? Wang Xian has chosen Guan Shuqing? If he has chosen Guan Shuqing, it must be true love. After all, Lan Qingyue's qualifications are too good. Within the school, when the students saw Guan Shuqing eating with Wang Xian, they were all shocked. They had not expected Wang Xian's final choice to be Guan Shuqing. Xiao Xian, when do you think we can go for a picnic again? I really miss the time when we had a picnic at the Eastern Hill. Guan Shuqing smiled radiantly at Wang Xian as she spoke. Picnic? That's easy. If you like, we can have it tonight. Nope. I have already eaten tonight. I'll get fat if I eat again. In that case, let's do it tomorrow. I'll get some large lobsters, crabs. Wang Xian chatted happily with Guan Shuqing. After they finished their meal, the two of them took a walk around the school again. Guan Shuqing had likely sensed something and took the initiative to hold Wang Xian's hand. Wang Xian smiled and walked around the school with her. The two of them were just like any couple as they strolled within the school. The news of Wang Xian choosing Guan Shuqing was also revealed on the school forum by others, causing a huge uproar. I really had not expected Wang Xian's final choice to be Guan Shuqing. This must be true love. Lan Qingyue's family is so rich and yet he has chosen Guan Shuqing. What a man! Wang Xian has made the right choice this time. If he can give up a girl with a superb family background and choose to be with Guan Shuqing will likely be very blessed. The news of Wang Xian getting together with Guan Shuqing was shocking to many people. However, there was still a large number of students who were impressed with Wang Xian. The next day, other than staying in his medical hall, Wang Xian spent all his remaining time with Guan Shuqing. He had also thought it through. Since he had made his decision, he shouldn't try to hide the facts. However, he sat within his dormitory room in shock on the third day. Old Wang Lan Qingyue has suspended her studies and has submitted her resignation as the vice president of the student council. I heard that she wanted to drop out of school initially, but the school has retained her name in the school's name roll. Nonetheless, she is unlikely to come back in the future, Wang Dehai said to Wang Xian. Looking at his reaction, Wang Dehai shook his head. I had not expected Lan Qingyue to be so in love with you. You are a really lucky guy. Wang Xian frowned. He took out his phone but hesitated. In the end, he did not contact her. Lan Qingyue's sudden drop out of school frustrated him a little. Bam! At this moment, the door of the room was kicked open suddenly with a loud bang. Who's that? Don't you know how to be softer? Wang Dehai turned around and cried out unsatisfactorily. However, when he saw the figure by the door, he was slightly surprised. At the door, an extremely handsome man was standing there. He had a pair of eyes which inclined upwards, and thin lips which made him look extremely beautiful. That's right, he was beautiful. This was an extremely beautiful and exquisite-looking man. Wang Dehai opened his mouth slightly. You are Mr. Feng. Mr. Feng was a very mysterious person in the school. All the students only knew that he was so good-looking that he made the other male students jealous, and was so beautiful that even girls envied his beauty. His family was extremely rich and he rarely appeared in school. Among the girls, they referred to him as Mr. Feng, a rather elegant name. You must be Wang Xian. Mr. Feng didn't pay attention to Wang Dehai and stared fervently at Wang Xian with his sharp eyes. Wang Xian looked at the extremely good-looking guy at the door and roared impatiently, Speak? I just returned yesterday, and I had not expected Lan Qingyue to have dropped out of school because of you. Therefore, I decided to investigate about you. To my surprise, you are really outstanding. Mr. Feng walked over slowly with his eyes fixed on Wang Xian. It was as though there were nothing and no one around him. I'm really surprised to learn that there is a man as outstanding as you. Mr. Feng was observing him as he complimented Wang Xian. However, you've made two mistakes. He wasn't bothered by Wang Xian's silence. First, you shouldn't have made Lan Qingyue fall in love with you. Second, you shouldn't have offended my Yan family. I'd like to invite you to a place tonight, he continued. As he spoke, an invitation card appeared in his hands. He flicked it lightly and it landed on the table beside Wang Xian. I'll make this an unforgettable night for you. If you don't come, you better watch out for your relatives and friends. Mr. Feng turned around and left with a huge smile after completing his sentence. Everyone in the school knew that Mr. Feng was fond of Lan Qingyue. However, Lan Qingyue didn't have the same feelings at that time. Subsequently, Mr. Feng, for unknown reasons, had rarely gone to the school. Now that he had returned, he received two pieces of negative news. He truly appreciated the fact that there was such an outstanding man in Rivertown, as he felt that there was finally someone he could relate to. However, it was destined that one of them would disappear forever from Rivertown. Wang Xian looked at his back view and a faint smile appeared on his face. Is the Yin family again threatening me? His mood wasn't great to start with because of the Lan Qingyue incident. Wang Xian took out his phone and called Mo Qinglong. He only told him 4 words. Dragon sect fall in. Chapter 133. Craziness Before Destruction. 1. Craziness Before Destruction. Whenever Wang Xian fought with someone in the past, he did not prefer talks. Instead, he struck immediately. But this time he wanted to have some fun. The Yin family had been threatening him time and time again. If he did not let them have a taste of despair, he would be letting himself down. Wang Xian wanted them to fall as heavy as they could when they were at the top. Dragon King. Harmonious voices sounded off in front of him. Wang Xian opened his eyes and saw 52 Dragonians gathered before him. Mo Qinglong, his disciple Mo Yuan, and 50 Dragonians. Mo Qinglong had already hit the inborn realm while his disciple, Mo Yuan, was a level 9 martial artist. The rest of the remaining Dragonians remained at level 7. Level 7 was considered high in Rivertown. The current Old Shui was only a martial artist at level 7, but the Shui family was ranked 4th in Rivertown. Old Duan was only a level 8 martial artist. Level 7 Dragonians may not fight 2 levels above them, but they could easily deal with level 8 martial artists. As for level 9 Mo Yuan, he could defeat half-step to Inborn, but he's still not a match for Inborn expert. As for Mo Qinglong, he's invincible to the Inborn experts. Wang Xian looked at the Dragonians and pondered. The strength and defense capability of the Dragonians was not any average martial artist could compare with. In the future, they could even fight 2 or 3 levels above them, once they activated the divine dragon bloodline within them. With such a strength, it is good enough to deal with the Yin family. Wang Xian looked at the Dragonians and burst out softly, "Follow my orders today. Our target is the Yin family. Today it's your first appearance. I hope all of you will not disappoint me." "Yes, Dragon King." All the Dragonians answered with bountiful fighting spirit. "Follow me and wait for my orders." Oh. The Yin family was the #1 ancient martial artist family in Rivertown. They were known as the domineering giant in this place. 20 years ago, the Yin family announced that they would go into seclusion to avoid chaos. They stayed low profile and ignored all underworld and society affairs. A few days ago, the Yin family announced their comeback. Their comeback stirred a great commotion in the entire Rivertown. In particular, in the ancient martial arts circle. Their comeback marked a huge shuffle in the rankings. 20 years ago, the Yin family had 3 level 9, 6 level 8 and dozens of level 7 martial artists. With such strength, the family was an invincible existence in Rivertown at that time. And they remained invincible at present even with their strength from 20 years ago. Now 20 years had passed, and the Yin family could only be more powerful. The comeback of the Yin family struck fear into all the martial artists and the martial art families in Rivertown. Today, it was the 9th day since the Yin family made their comeback. At the same time, it was the day they declared their return formally. The Yin family invited all the martial artists in Rivertown to the Yin family's mountain villa. Everyone knew their intention. The declaration of the king's return. Yin family's mountain villa was situated before a summit near the sea known as Mount Qingfeng. The entire Mount Qingfeng belonged to the Yin family. Hence, the Yin family's mountain villa was worthy of its name. The villa was extremely lively in the evening. The martial artists and the martial art families in Rivertown were not a lot, but were made up of 300 to 400 people. All the martial artists were moving to the Yin family in groups. Some of them had grave expressions. Some were feeling uneasy. Some were looking thrilled. "When will Wang Xian be here?" asked Old Duan to Old Shui and a group of more than 20 people. "I called him just now. He should be here soon. Let's go in." Old Shui replied slowly with a solemn face. Wang Xian did not give any face to the Yin family. "I'm afraid today," Old Duan was a little worried. He should have his own plans. Old Shui was contemplating too. He could not tell Wang Xian's thoughts. Given his understanding of Wang Xian and the imposing vibe that he released occasionally, he could sense the domineering strength in Wang Xian. Wang Xian was full of mystery. Since he dared to show up for this event, he should have some backings. But all these were just his conjectures. All the families and martial artists in Rivertown are here. No one dares to turn the Yen family down. I wonder what they will be doing or what announcement they will be making at this event, Old Duan said as he tensed up. We'll take one step at a time. There are so many martial artists in Rivertown. I doubt the Yen family can take things too far. Old Shui pondered and answered him as he walked. Her? Isn't that? Suddenly an exclamation was heard. Old Shui and Old Duan peered over their shoulders immediately. They raised their eyebrows. Hu family? The one beside the master of Hu family is Whirling Blade Hu Fei. Is Hu Fei part of the Hu family? This is possible. Hu Fei is ranked 7th in Rivertown. Hu Fei did not rise in Rivertown, but in the far north. No one has linked Whirling Blade Hu Fei with the Hu family. From the looks of it now. Unexpected. Totally unexpected. Hu Fei is a level 9 martial artist. What did the Hu family bring Hu Fei here for? To strengthen the Hu family? Or are they together with the Yen family? Old Shui and Old Duan were looking even more solemn than ever when they saw the sudden appearance of the level 9 martial artist. The water in Rivertown got murkier. No one could predict what would happen at tonight's dinner. All the martial artists entered the ancient-looking villa. The villa looked retro, as if it was one of those secluded villas in the martial arts movies. 2 burly, middle-aged men were standing on the left and right of the entrance. From the vibes they gave off, all the martial artists that streamed in had grave expressions on their faces. Even the gatekeepers are level 5 martial artists. The Yen family is too domineering. All the power of all martial artists in Rivertown combined may not be comparable to the Yen family. People around exchanged whispers. Stepping on the red carpet, everyone strolled into the villa. The villa was huge, with little bridges and streams looking picturesque. There was an open space all the way to the back. It was filled with tables and chairs as though it was a sect gathering from the ancient underworld. On the tables were fruits and food. 2 striking flags were placed at the sides with words that said, Return of the Hidden Dragon, roaming the 9 skies. The words were magnificent. Guests can sit according to their strengths and rankings. A steward look-alike middle-aged man stood in front and gave everyone the instructions. His hands were behind his back, with the imposing manner of a level 8 martial artist. Everyone took a look and headed to their seats after a slight hesitation. Starting from the second family in Rivertown, Ren family, Hu family, Duan family, Shui family, etc., they sat in their own seats. Half an hour before the start of the Yan's dinner event, everyone was here early. The steward observed the situation with a glimmer of satisfaction on his face. This is right. When the Yen family returns, all of them must submit to them. Chapter 134. Craziness Before Destruction 2. 7:30 p.m. The table set up at the Yen family's Mountain Villa training field was filled with martial artists. Martial artists from Rivertown sat in 2 rows according to their strength. Those who were at the forefront were all top-ranking families. However, there were 8 seats placed horizontally across the middle. These seats were for the Yen family. The Yen family was very particular about the setting of this banquet, and was being extremely arrogant. 2 straight vertical rows for the various martial artists of Rivertown, and a horizontal row at the front for the Yen family. This setting was an emulation of the local authority in ancient times. The king would be seated in the middle, and his officials would sit in 2 rows in front of him. Everyone could tell that the Yen family was seeing the other families in Rivertown as their officials, while they were the king. There was still half an hour until the start of the banquet. Seeing that everyone had arrived, the Yen family felt satisfied. At approximately 7:35 p.m., members of the Yen family started walking in from the entrance to the banquet one after another. The 6 of them instantly attracted the attention of everyone. In the middle of the group, an old man held a walking stick with a dragon head at the top. He had a head of gray hair but the looks of a child. One would easily mistake him for a middle-aged man of 40 to 50 years old. To the side of this old man was an extremely good-looking juvenile wearing white. The juvenile had pearl-white teeth and thin, red lips which made him look extremely beautiful. Beside the two of them were two old men. They had burly statures and looked across the surroundings as though they were far superior to the rest. Further to each side were two middle-aged men. The old man in the middle must be the leader of the Yen family, Yen Gukong. He reached martial artist level 9 20 years ago. I wonder if he has taken that final step. The oldest generation of the Yen family included Yen Gukong, Yen Gufeng and Yen Guli. Among them, Yen Gukong is the strongest. Those two middle-aged men are Yen Zhongyuan and Yen Zhongwen. Both of them are level 8 martial artists. Together with their martial artist level 8 butler, they still have 3 other level 8 martial artists who aren't here today. They are too strong. Really too strong. Even if Yen Gukong hasn't made the breakthrough, the strength that the Yen family has displayed is enough to overwhelm everyone here today. The martial artist families and martial artists, who were seated at the side, looked at the 6 people in shock as they walked towards the seats at the forefront. When the 6 of them reached their seats, they turned around and looked down on the surrounding crowd. Yen Gukong was holding on to a dragon-head walking stick and shouted, 20 years ago, our Yen family announced our retirement and stayed away from the matters of the underworld. On this very day, 20 years later, our Yen family is announcing our return. The reason why we have invited everyone is to announce this. 20 years. We have been missing from the underworld of Rivertown for 20 years. Today our Yen family is back. Yen Gukong lifted his head slightly and looked across the 2 flags erected at 2 ends. Return of the Hidden Dragon. Roaming the 9 skies. As he spoke, a faint smile appeared on his face. I'm grateful to everyone who could attend the Yen family's banquet. Please enjoy the food and alcohol today. However, our Yen family has a few things to announce before we start. It's coming. The entire banquet hall was silent. When they heard Yen Gukong, their hearts skipped a beat. What was coming next would affect everyone's interests. Yen Gukong looked across the crowd and showed a faint smile. First, the Yen family hasn't participated in the quarrels of Rivertown in the last 20 years. Since we are announcing our return, it's only natural for us to collect some interest. Experts rule the underworld. Our Yen family won't rob you guys of your interest. However, we will be collecting 20% of your resources. What? 20%? Before Yen Gukong had finished his words, a middle-aged man couldn't help but exclaim, "Wait for me to finish." Yen Gukong stared at the middle-aged man and said plainly. The middle-aged man immediately held his breath and did not dare to say another word. The surrounding crowd turned solemn as they waited for Yen Gukong. Second, now that the underworld is changing and the competition for resources has gotten fiercer, our Yen family welcomes any families who wish to become our affiliates. Third, ancient martial arts families in Rivertown have been fighting over their own interests all along. I feel that we should get together and take a common stand against outsiders for survival. Anyone has any objections? Ruthless. Ruthless, ruthless. Each announcement was more ruthless than the previous. First, collecting 20% of interest from every family. Second, recruiting affiliates to the Yen family. Third, becoming the king of Rivertown. In other words, it was similar to the ruler of the underworld in ancient times. When Yen Gukong completed his announcement, the surrounding martial artists and ancient martial arts families instantly turned solemn. The 3 announcements of Yen Gukong were simply ruthless. Our Chao family supports the Yen family. Old Yen and Yen family's strength are something that we all could see with our eyes. At this moment, a middle-aged man stood up and replied loudly. As he spoke, he looked across the crowd. Yen family's strength is miles ahead of us. If old Yen really wants to do a major reshuffling in Rivertown, who can possibly stop him? Old Yen is compassionate. The 3 conditions aren't too tough. Our Chao family is willing to support the Yen family. I, Chong Gaoyang, am willing to join the Yen family. I've always held old Yen in high regards. I'm willing to join Yen family and be on the same boat as them. Our Wu family is willing to support the Yen family and become an affiliated family. One after another, leaders of various ancient martial arts families and martial artists stood up and announced their desire to join and support the Yen family. There were more than 24 people who stood up and pledged their loyalty to the Yin family. Haha, great. Now that you guys have joined our Yin family will naturally be kind to you. All of you will be part of the Yin family from today onwards. Yin Gukong looked on as he spoke to the 24 people. It is obvious that these people are bought over by the Yin family in advance. 20% of our interests and to follow the instructions of the Yin family from here onwards? That's equivalent to treating us as his subordinates. That's too much. The conditions of the Yin family were truly too much. Some were agreeable, but the majority wasn't willing to accept. The Yin family wants to collect 20% of our interests the moment they announce their return, and have even demanded our obedience? That's no different from treating us as their subordinates. The few families which were seated at the forefront exchanged glances. Old Yen, aren't you too overbearing with your 3 conditions? Although the Yin family is strong, aren't you a little too over yourself by demanding to collect our interests and treating us like your subordinates? Our Hu family is just a small family. All we are looking for is to survive steadily. We will not be participating in this. Seated in the first row, Hu Fei, who sat beside the leader of the Hu family, stood up and spoke to Yin Gukong. The families in Rivertown have always sought their own development. Moreover, the relationships between ancient martial arts families in Rivertown are cordial. I don't think your concerns are warranted. The 20th generation leader of the Ren family, who was a level 9 martial artist, also stood up and made his decision known. Old Shui, Old Duan and the leaders of a few other families also stood up. With regard to these 3 conditions, they couldn't agree. Ha, great. Great. It's all right. It's only natural that you guys won't agree. Yin Gukong laughed out loud. However, his expression turned vicious as he looked at the remaining martial artists. However, don't forget that we are part of the underworld. In the underworld, experts rule. If you guys don't agree, the Yin family can only suppress you guys and make you guys agree with violence. Chapter 135. Craziness Before Destruction 3. Domineering. Confident. Arrogant. With his dragon-head walking stick in his hand, Yin Gukong swept his overbearing gazes across everyone. The crowd next to Yin Gukong overlooked the rest of the people, exuding powerful aura. Old Yen, aren't you a bully? We're just a small family. You don't have to be so pushy. I have been in the underworld for more than 10 years, and I still have some connections. The Hu family just wants to stay out of this. Hu Fei said to Yin Gukong and his clique sullenly. His purpose here this time was not to fight for any status. He just wanted to ensure the safety of the Hu family. He had seen situations like what happened tonight in the Yen family throughout his dozen years of underworld experience. When a powerful family rises, the rest of the families either submit to it or be destroyed. This was the norm in the underworld. Hence, he was here to protect the Hu family. Oh, is that so? Yin Gukong remained silent. But the young man next to him looked at Hu Fei with a teasing look. The Whirling Blade Hu Fei. I have heard of your name. It's just that I'm not sure if you have what it takes to be a legend. As the young man spoke, he slowly walked down from the table. Hu Fei frowned as he glared disgruntledly at that young man. I'm talking to Old Yen. You're not fit to talk to me yet. Is that so? The young man swung his arms, and a belt sword appeared creepily in his hand. He lifted his chin slightly and said, Sacred Seas of Swords, Yen Feng. I want a taste of your blade. What? Sacred Seas of Swords? Hu Fei was stunned by Yen Feng and he looked shocked. His eyes narrowed. You're from the Sacred Seas of Swords. Hey, you can test me. Aren't you a level 9 martial artist? Yen Feng put on a smiling face and looked as though he was someone charming. Oh, you said you have many friends. Just nice. I have friends too. Haha. Good to have friends around the world. At the same time, a gentle and feminine voice was heard. Subsequently, a fair-looking young man stood from the back of the row. The young man made a leap and presented himself in front of the Yin family at an unbelievable speed. He sat down on an empty seat there with a smile. It's a better seat here. What a broad vision. He's formidable. He's fast. This young man is at least a level 9 martial artist. Gosh, this young man is actually from Sacred Seas of Swords. Sacred Seas of Swords. Gone. I did not expect that young man to be someone from the Sacred Seas of Swords. The Yin family is unstoppable. The martial artists were differentiated by levels, as were the families and clans. In the underworld, the families and clans were split into third-class force and saint-class force. According to this classification, the Yin family was considered to be the second class, while the first-class force would already have inborn experts. As for the saint-class forces, it meant the families or clans possessed daunting influence and strength with over 10 inborn experts. Sacred Followers Guild, Medical Saint Sect, and Sacred Seas of Swords were colossuses. Even Yan Feng was a member of the saint-class force, and no average families or sects could afford to get into his bad books. Hu Fei glared at Yan Feng with a dreadful expression. He did not expect that the young man before him was a disciple of the Sacred Seas of Swords. The Sacred Seas of Swords headquarters was located on an island in the sea. That island was one of the sacred lands of swordsmanship. The young man who was recruited by the Sacred Seas of Swords must be a rare talent. The sword versus the saber. Show me your skill. If you can defeat me, I'll let the Hu family leave this place. Otherwise. Yan Feng lifted his chin and wielded his belt sword like an agile snake. The sharp edge of the sword gave off a cold radiance. Oh. Haha, my grandson has made himself clear. Show us what you've got so that we know if you're qualified to defy the Yin family. Yin Gukong looked at his grandson and laughed out loud. It was a great blessing to the Yin family that this grandson of his was a disciple of the Sacred Seas of Swords. With his grandson around, they could suppress the entire river town even without him making his moves. Fine. Hu Fei curled his fingers tightly and took out a sharp machete from his back. His impassive eyes were focusing on Yan Feng. I'm going to attack. Yan Feng drew his lips into a faint smile. His body made a quick move and attacked Hu Fei like a ghostly soul. His move is creepy. Indeed, the disciple of the Sacred Seas of Swords. Hu Fei narrowed his pupils and held his machete tight as he brought it down in front of him. The blade brought a whirling gust of wind. Piak. But when his machete came into contact with the sword, the belt sword wrapped it like an agile snake. It went for Hu Fei's hand and stabbed it. What a creepy sword. Hu Fei was appalled. He quickly drew his machete back, but even so, his palm got a wound that cut into his bone. The victory was determined within a stroke. What a daunting young man. He possesses a level 9 strength at such a young age. In the future, he can definitely be an inborn expert. Too dominating. He's only in his 20s. He is capable of defeating Hu Fei. This. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. How can we resist the Yin family? Everyone was dumbfounded by the scene. Ah! At the same time, Hu Fei, who had exchanged more than 10 strokes, was horrified. All of a sudden, Yan Feng had another transparent soft sword in his hand. The sword went through Hu Fei's shoulder, and his face paled after this. You can exchange more than 20 strokes with me. Not bad. Yan Feng gave Hu Fei praise. Hu Fei's face was ashen. He stared at Yan Feng in disbelief with his body trembling. He was already a famous level 9 expert. Hu Fei, the leader of the Hu family, was panicked as he ran over. We admit our loss. We lost. What the leader of the Hu family said made everyone shudder. It's over. It's completely over. The Yin family is unstoppable. Bai family is willing to follow the lead of the Yin family. Gu family is willing to join hands and fight along with the Yin family. I, Gu Xinghe, am willing to join the Yin family. All of a sudden, some of the families and martial artists made their pledge to Yin family. The Yin family was too strong. They were so strong that they could easily suppress everyone. Since the sparring has begun, let's do a few more rounds to make those who refuse to submit to us surrender. Suddenly, Yin Zhongyuan, who was standing in front, made his speech. He walked out slowly and swept his cold gazes across a few people. He's trying to get rid of all his enemies. Beat the dog before the lion. The Yin family is eliminating those who have offended them. Everyone's face was pale when they saw Yin Zhongyuan approaching them. They were praying that he would not look for them. Old Shui and Old Duan saw Yin Zhongyuan looking over, and their faces were washed out. Both of them had grudges. Chapter 136. Descent of the King 1. The Yin family sat there like how a king would. Every action or word from them was watched closely by the surrounding people. No one could stop them. And they wouldn't be stopped. Just like the return of the king. The return of the true ruler. Don't push it. Seeing Yin Zhongyuan approaching him, his body was shivering slightly and fear started creeping on him. Behind him, the other Duan family members' faces were as white as sheets as they stood there helplessly. What do you mean by pushing it? This is just like any other ordinary sparring. My nephew is a martial artist level 9 expert and so is Hu Fei. We are both at martial artist level 8. Yin Zhongyuan looked at Old Duan tauntingly before turning to Old Shui. Oh right, where's that brat Wang Xian? Why isn't he here? Old Shui's heart sank and had a ghastly expression. He knew that his close relationship with Wang Xian on that day had completely angered the Yan family. I gave him an invitation letter but it seems like he's not here today. Yin Feng looked around with derision. His medical skills are so great and he has the capital to be proud. I still thought he would appear. It seems like he has disappointed me. He shook his head gradually and looked a little disappointed. However, I told him that if he wasn't here, he'd better watch out for his family and friend. Yin Feng stared at Old Shui and smirked. Those who offend our Yin family will definitely deeply regret their actions. Come, let's spar. Yin Zhongyuan looked to Old Xian and said plainly. Yin Feng waved his hand to signal for a martial artist level 7 expert from Yin family to step out. He then looked towards Old Shui in contempt. All right, who's afraid of you? Come. Old Duan's face turned solemn. He clenched his fist tightly and walked to the middle of the field. Old Shui was equally solemn as he faced that expert from the Yin family. The crowd held their breath and looked at Old Duan and Old Shui with pity. They were currently the third and fourth strongest families in Rivertown, and were extremely strong existences in the entire Rivertown. However, in the face of the Yin family, they couldn't do anything but be manipulated by them. They could already foresee the Duan family and Shui family being erased from Rivertown in the near future. Haha. Come. Yin Zhongyuan laughed heartily before launching his attack. This was originally a training field and there was ample space. Cripple him. Tell Wang Xian that this is just the beginning. If he dares to be a coward, I'll let him experience a life worse than death. Yin Feng said to the martial artist from the Yin family. Yes, young master. That middle-aged man nodded his head and stared harshly at Old Shui. Wang Xian? TSK. Contempt filled the eyes of Yin Feng. As one that was favored by the gods, he was spotted by an expert from the sacred seas of swords and had trained under him since he was young. When he was 18 years old, he was brought to the sacred seas island by his master. He had always been under the dazzling limelight when growing up. Soon, the Yin family would become the king of the entire Rivertown. At that time, he would be the crown prince of Rivertown. No one would dare to go against his words. So what if that brat has some medical skills? Crushing him would be as simple as crushing an ant. Yin Feng smirked and stared at Old Shui. He looked to the surrounding crowd and spread his domineering aura towards them. On the training field, Yin Zhongyuan was engaged in an intense fight with Old Duan. Old Shui and the middle-aged man were also fighting with all they had. Nonetheless, it was clear that Old Duan and Old Shui were on the losing end. Since the Yin family had chosen them for the battles, they would definitely be confident about the outcome. It's over. Old Shui and Old Duan are probably going to be defeated soon. Yin Zhongyuan and the other martial artist are ruthless with each strike. The third and fourth strongest families are going to be crushed so easily? That's horrifying. The crowd looked attentively at the battle of these four people and discussed softly. Shui Jing, his father and the members of the Duan family were all watching anxiously. Their faces were as white as sheets and their eyes were filled with despair. Ark! A piercing scream sounded and the crowd felt as if their hearts skipped a beat. Yin Zhongyuan palm struck ruthlessly on the chest of old Duan, causing it to sink in directly. It was an extremely brutal scene. As for old Shui, his four limbs were crippled and he lay on the floor motionless. Even his elixir field had been crushed. A complete tragedy. As the two old men fell, it also represented the complete destruction of the Shui family and Duan family. Shui Jing and his father's eyes were bloodshot and they stared at the members of the Yen family with deep hatred. The members of the Duan family were shivering in anger and clenching their fists tightly. However, they didn't dare to retaliate. Undermatch. Who still dares to go against our Yen family? At this moment, seeing that old Duan and old Shui were lying on the floor, Yin Gukong stood up slowly and shouted. He lifted the dragon head walking stick in his hand slowly. Who else? It was another angry roar. This roar was full of might, dominance and the aura of an expert. When his dragon head walking stick landed on the ground, a low and dull sound propagated together with an invisible airwave towards the crowd. Instantly, everyone felt a faint sense of pressure. Half step. Inborn. The leader of the Run family, who was seated in the front, instantly opened his eyes widely. His face was filled with horror. This aura was definitely from someone who was at the half step to inborn realm. He had not expected Yen Gukong of the Yen family to make this step and achieve the realm of half step to inborn. Half step to inborn. Oh my gosh. He's at the half step to inborn realm. Old Yen is a half step to inborn expert. I'll surrender. I'll surrender. The surrounding martial artists were all shocked. We are willing to defer to the Yen family. We are willing to follow the commands of the Yen family from here onwards. The remaining martial artists, who had not made a stand previously, immediately bowed down. A disciple of sacred seas of swords and a half-step to inborn expert. What a horrifying family. They might very well become a first-class family in the future. The martial artists bowed down to show their will to submit. On the training field, old Shui looked at the horrifying Yen family in despair. Even if Wang Xian was here right now, there would be no other way out. It's over. Haha. Follow our Yen family and you will bask in glory in the near future. Yen Gukong looked at the crowd and laughed heartily. He then added 4 words. The king has returned. Let's give up. The leader of the Run family felt helpless. He knew that the Yen family couldn't be stopped and they couldn't oppose the Yen family. What was left for them would be only to surrender. Although he was unwilling, there was no other option for him. Just as he was about to lower his body, a voice sounded suddenly. The invitation letter stated that the banquet would start at 8 p.m. It's 8 p.m. right now. It seems like someone has been impatient. It was unexpected and the surrounding crowd was shocked. They turned around and looked at the entrance. A juvenile was walking towards them with a faint smile. There was a group of people following behind this juvenile and they had a unique disposition around them. All of them had completely sealed their auras. One could not sense a shred of internal energy from them. It was as though they were ordinary people. Everyone was shocked to see this group of people. Within the Run family crowd, Ren Jian saw a familiar figure. Looking at the old man beside the figure, his eyes constricted. He's here. Chapter 137. Descent of the King 2. Within the group of 53 people, a young man was walking in the center with an elderly man following beside him. The young man put on a smile and swept his gaze across everyone in front of him casually. But when he saw the old man who was lying on the ground, his smile slowly disappeared. The banquet in the training field was plunged into silence as they watched the incoming group of people. Who are you? How dare you make a scene in the Yen family's mountain villa? A martial artist from Rivertown shouted at the top of his lungs. He wanted to please the Yen family. A bunch of small fries. How dare you even mess with the Yen family? The leader of the Bai family also did the same thing. The ones who just arrived were Wang Xian and his dragon sect. He swept his cold gaze across everyone and strolled to old Shui. I didn't think you dared to come. I thought you were a coward. When Yin Feng saw Wang Xian bring his men over, he gave a faint smile after looking at them. Yin Feng did not take those people to heart. In fact, he felt that this was getting interesting. It's only 8 o'clock now. I thought I was punctual, but I didn't expect the dinner to have been brought forward. You're not sticking to the time. Wang Xian threw an impassive look at Yin Feng, the so-called Mr. Feng in school, before he came to old Shui and squatted beside him. Wang Xian, you're here. Be careful. The Yin family, they are just too strong, said old Shui with an ashen-looking face, in despair as he looked at Wang Xian. Don't worry, old Shui. Leave this to me. Wang Xian placed his palm on old Shui and used his dragon energy to treat him. The 4 limbs of old Shui had been crippled, and his elixir field was destroyed. His life as a martial artist was completely ruined. But to Wang Xian this was nothing. An immense dragon energy repaired all his injuries. Old Shui recovered speedily, and his expression was slightly different when he stared blankly at Wang Xian. Wang Xian smiled at him and lifted him up from the floor slowly. Old Shui was injured because of him. However, he was not too late. He could still treat the injuries, and for those who hurt his friends he could. Well, what powerful medical skills you have. No wonder the Sacred Followers Guild was defeated by you. Yin Feng's eyes brightened up when he saw old Shui stand up suddenly. I'll give you a chance to atone for your mistake. Submit to the Yin family, and I can forgive your rude and imprudent behavior. I can also let your friends off. As he spoke, he was looking down his nose at Wang Xian, giving off immense confidence from within. Yin Feng stared at him as though he was looking at his prey. As the one favored by the gods, he had never regarded Wang Xian as his match. Wang Xian wore a smiling face and looked over. Yin Feng was overconfident such that he was arrogant. Wang Xian ignored Yin Feng. Old Shui, who hurt you? I sparred with a martial artist from the Yin family, and I was crippled by him. Old Shui had a bitter look on his face. After all, it was his fault for being poor enough with his skills to get eliminated by a martial artist of the same level. Sparring. Wang Xian looked at the Yin family. Since all of you like sparring, then spar with my people. Show me what the Yin family has got as the return of the king. Haha, lad. I guess you want it the hard way. I've given you a chance. If you make me angry, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Yin Feng looked at Wang Xian, who disregarded him with a ferocious look. Lad, with just these people of yours, we could destroy them without the Yin family. Old Yin will cripple these arrogant fellows on your order. One by one, the martial artists and the family sought permission from Old Yin as they raised their cold voices at Wang Xian. Yin Gukong made a gesture, and all the martial artists went silent immediately. None of them dared to utter a word. You are the fellow who offended our distinguished guest from the Sacred Followers Guild, disregarding the Yin family, aren't you? Yin Gukong glared at Wang Xian, questioning him. Your people injured my friend, right? Wang Xian did not answer him. He also stared at Yin Gukong and questioned him back. This is what happens when you go against the Yin family, Yin Gukong said without any emotions. Very well. Since you like it this way, I'll do it your way. Wang Xian nodded impassively. He swept his gazes around and bellowed in a cold voice, who was the one who injured my friend? Step out now. It's me, brat. I'll cripple him every time after you heal him. This is the consequence of offending the Yin family. The middle-aged man who fought with old Shui spoke impassively to Wang Xian as he looked at old Shui scornfully. Well then, let's spar. Wang Xian beckoned, and a Dragonian walked out in wide steps. Level 7 martial artist, Emosher San. The Dragonian stared at that middle-aged man. Haha, challenging the Yin family? That's interesting. Upon seeing Wang Xian sending his people to fight with the Yin family, Yin Gukong laughed out. If so, it's only polite to accept the challenge. Let's play with them. The middle-aged man let out a cold laugh. He bowed to Yin Gukong before he stared at Emosher San with his chin up. I'll destroy you. Given Yin Beiyun and old Shui's combat skills, Yin Beiyun is at his peak as a level 7 martial artist. He could be even a level 8 martial artist. The art that he practiced was already formidable. among the martial artists at level 7, and he's almost invincible. Yet this juvenile actually challenged him. He's obviously courting his own death. Who's that young guy who dares to provoke the Yin family? He even shows himself at this dinner today. He's asking for it. This fellow wasn't here just now, so he didn't witness how formidable the Yin family is. Now he seems like a clown, copying the Yin family by asking for a spar. What a joke. Everyone stared at Wang Xian with disdainful looks. The less wit, the more courage. If he dared to provoke the mighty one, his outcome would be dreadful. Wang Xian listened to the surrounding discussion. Seeing the arrogant expression on the middle-aged man's face, Wang Xian revealed a playful look. Boom! Just when everyone was waiting for Emosher-san to be abused by Yin Beiyun, Emosher-san moved. A faint black aura was exuded from his body as he charged rapidly at the middle-aged man like some savage beast. Some capability he has. The middle-aged man squinted his eyes. He curled his fingers into a fist tightly and darted out. Trash! Boom! A faint voice sounded from the training ground, followed by a low groan. The middle-aged man from the Yin family flew out at a terrifying speed. His sunken chest could be seen in the air. Bam! The middle-aged man from the Yin family landed on the table heavily and lay there without moving. How is this possible? Everyone was taken aback. That middle-aged man was at the peak of level 7, but he was instantly killed by someone of the same level. This was unbelievable. Brat, how dare you lie to us? Damn you! Seeing his clanmate being killed in a split second, Yin Zhongyuan was furious. He would never believe that Emosher-san was only a level 7 martial artist. At his level, he could never achieve an instant kill. Chapter 138, Descent of the King 3. Die! Twisting his body, Yin Zhongyuan lifted a sword and slashed towards Emosher-san rapidly. How dare you send a level 8 martial artist expert to battle a level 7 martial artist expert from the Yin family? That's despicable. Diske. Just a brat courting death. This time, the Yin family will definitely not let them off. The crowd looked on coldly as Yin Zhongyuan launched his attacks. Although it was shocking that Emosher-san had defeated the middle-aged man from the Yin family in an instant, the crowd saw Wang Xian's action of hiding Emosher-san's true strength as the reason for his imminent downfall. Despite seeing Yin Zhongyuan making his moves, Wang Xian did not say a word. Instead, he simply smiled and looked on. Those who dare to offend our king shall all die today. Emosher-san looked at Yin Zhongyuan. Around him devilish flames were rising. His fingers turned into a claw as he swung his arm. One could vaguely see faint scales on the hands of Emosher-san. Dragon scales. Courting death. Yin Zhongyuan manipulated the long sword in his hand. To his astonishment, he saw Emosher-san intending to take the attack directly with his bare hand. Murderous intent filled his face as he slashed down ruthlessly. Bam! However, what happened sent chills down Yin Zhongyuan's spine. Emosher-san had grabbed onto the long sword directly with his hand. Moreover, cracks were starting to appear on his long sword. Roar! Emosher-san let out a low growl as he attacked heavily with his right hand. Yin Zhongyuan was shocked by the development and immediately raised his arm to defend against the attack. Crack crack! To his astonishment, he heard the bones of his arms cracking. Bam bam bam! Emosher-san clenched his claws and dealt 5 consecutive punches to Yin Zhongyuan's forelimbs and elixir field. In less than 10 moves, Yin Zhongyuan was down on the ground. Martial artist level 9, the crowd exclaimed, looking on in disbelief. He is definitely a martial artist level 9 expert. Otherwise, he wouldn't have defeated Yin Zhongyuan so easily. Yin Zhongyuan could be considered as very strong even among martial artist level 8 experts. Bam! Great! How dare you make a fool of the Yin family? You have completely angered me. When Yin Gukong saw Yin Zhongyuan crippled by Emosher-san, the dragon-head walking stick in his hand smashed heavily on the floor. At the same time, a strong and dense aura started emitting from his body. He stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent. I have made my decision. You won't be stepping out of the Yin family's gate tonight. Yin Feng lifted his belt sword and pointed at Wang Xian. His belt sword was like an agile snake and had a dazzling glow. Let me destroy him. Yin Guli, who was beside Yin Gukong, walked over slowly with a heavy look. His eyes were fixed on Emosher San. I'm really just a level 7 martial artist. Emosher San pouted and looked at him with murderous intent. Emo Yuan, martial artist level 9. At this moment, Emo Qinglong's disciple, Emo Yuan, walked forward and passed Wang Xian. He maintained a cold smile while observing his surroundings. Emosher San bowed to Emo Yuan before leaving. Emo Yuan nodded in response before looking to Yin Guli. Yin Guli's expression changed and the crowd was stunned. Everyone's attention was on Emo Yuan. It can't be. Emo Yuan looks so much stronger than Emosher San. Emosher San claimed to be martial artist level 7, but was able to easily crush martial artist level 8. Now we have Emo Yuan, who looks much stronger and is claiming to be martial artist level 9. How strong is this group of people? The martial artists around looked at Emo Yuan in disbelief. At this moment they had put away their disdain and chose to take this group of people more seriously. Yin Gukong from the Yin family also squinted his eyes. His palm wrapped around the dragon head walking stick tightly, and he suddenly had a bad premonition. Yin Feng's expression had also turned heavy. He looked at Emo Yuan before looking across at the group of people behind Wang Xian. Playing tricks. Yin Guli's expression changed dramatically. He gritted his teeth and jumped towards Emo Yuan. You? Not good enough. Emo Yuan looked nonchalantly at Yin Guli and his face was filled with contempt. Die! Yin Guli's palm turned red, emitting dazzling and scorching light as he struck towards Emo Yuan's head. Dragon Claw. Emo Yuan was unmoved. Just as Yin Guli's attack was about to hit him, he swung his 5 fingers like a claw towards Yin Guli. Art! Horror and shrieks sounded. Emo Yuan grabbed onto Yin Guli's arm easily. His eyes were filled with contempt as he said, "You are too weak." Next. Bam! Yin Guli was sent flying back and landed heavily in front of Yin Gukong. He was throwing out blood violently. Instant kill. How can this be possible? He can't be a level 9 martial artist. Definitely not. He is at least a half-step to Inborn Realm expert. Half-step to Inborn. Could it be that he is really at the half-step to Inborn Realm? Who is that juvenile? How is he able to bring along such powerful people? Shock. Everyone was stunned. No one had expected that juvenile to bring along such horrifying people. What would the Yin family do now? At this moment, the people in the crowd who had chided them to get on the good books of the Yin family previously were turning pale. They would have never expected this group of people to be so powerful. The members of the Yin family turned solemn. Even the arrogant looks on Yin Gukong were gone. Yin Feng had also put aside his arrogance and looked at Wang Xian in disbelief. Hehe. Let's continue. Wang Xian said as he looked across the crowd at Emo Yuan. Yes. Emo Yuan nodded his head and turned his attention to Yin Gukong in the middle. Only you are qualified to be my opponent. Yin Gukong's expression turned ghastly and his hand that was holding onto the walking stick started shivering. This is unexpected. Really unexpected. May I ask, where are you guys from? Dragon Sect. Emo Yuan said plainly. Dragon Sect? I don't think we have any deep grudges between us. If we continue with this fight, you wouldn't come out unscathed. Yin Gukong stared at Emo Yuan as he spoke. Since you have offended our Dragon King, it's only natural to annihilate you. Emo Yuan pouted. As to whether we would come out unscathed, your Yin family isn't qualified to say that. You are really full of nonsense. Emo Yuan spoke, and as he finished his words, the devilish aura around him raged fiercely as he attacked Yin Gukong. Fight! Yin Gukong was shocked. The opponent was too overbearing. Get back! Get back! Battles between half-step to Inborn experts could implicate a large area. Seeing the fight, the leader of the Run family quickly retreated. All the ancient martial arts families also retreated in a hurry as they looked to the fight in horror. They had initially thought that the Yin family would announce the return of the king and dominate over all others. To their surprise, A juvenile brought a group of horrifying experts over that could even match Yin family's half-step to inborn realm expert. Father, that old man is likely to be even stronger than Mo Yuan. Ren Jian and the Ren family were dumbfounded by the fight. When Ren Jian saw the old man behind Wang Xian, he subconsciously recalled the events of that fateful night. He couldn't hold back his thoughts as he spoke to his father. The leader of the Ren family was slightly shocked as he turned his gaze towards the old man in front of the group of 50 people. The old man maintained a faint smile throughout and didn't seem to be concerned about the current battle. Jian, are you sure? The leader of the Ren family was shaking slightly. I'm sure. Ren Jian nodded his head heavily. Inborn expert. Horror crept into the leader of the Ren family. Chapter 139. He's the King of Rivertown 1. Twists and turns one after another. The eventful twists in the ancient martial arts world of Rivertown stunned everyone. First, Yin family declared a strong return as a king and oppressed the entire ancient martial arts world in Rivertown. Next, a mysterious young man led his dragon sect to challenge the Yin family. Everyone opened their eyes to a new world when they saw two half-step to inborn experts fighting at the stage of the training ground. But they were all waiting since their fates were closely linked to the victorious party. All the people from the Yin family were looking gloomy as they observed the showdown. Their arrogance and egotism were long gone. Too fast. We can't see their moves clearly. Is this the half-step to inborn experts combat? It's horrifying. All the martial artists retreated to the edge of the field as they watched the battle in horror. All they could see were two figures exchanging hands at a fast speed, but they could not see their strokes clearly. Yin Feng held his belt sword tightly as he stared at the field. Is this the best the Yin family can do? Just then, Mo Yuan's voice cut through the battle. How dare you be arrogant when you just became a half-step to inborn? You're gone. As Mo Yuan's cold bellow passed through again, the two entangled figures separated themselves. Puke! Yin Gukong's figure kept going back with his hand clasping at the dragon-head walking stick. Ka. Puke! Yin Gukong's cheeks were flushed with redness as the dragon-head walking stick slowly cracked by itself. He spat a mouthful of blood and stared at Mo Yuan with an ashen face. What? Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. He was defeated. Yin Gukong from the Yin family was defeated. The Yin family is defeated. Rivertown is going to change hands again. That middle-aged man is incredibly powerful. Gone. No one thought that the day that the king returns would be the day they would be defeated. The surrounding martial artists had mixed expressions. Old Yin. Brother. The people from the Yin family held their breath as they ran towards Yin Gukong. All of them stared at Mo Yuan with an icy cold look. Yin Gukong was panting as he glared at Mo Yuan with a gloomy look. He gritted his teeth. I've lost. I think you can still go on. Mo Yuan walked towards Yin Gukong slowly with a sarcastic smile on his face. We admitted our loss. What else do you want? An old man from the Yin family asked Mo Yuan with an awful look. Just now my friend was defeated. Didn't you cripple him? Wang Xian looked at the people from the Yin family with a mocking expression. He cast a look at Yin Feng. With a nonchalant face he asked, now you know the consequences for threatening me. You, Yin Feng stared coldly at Wang Xian without all his calmness and arrogance. I'm the disciple of the sacred seas of swords. My master is an inborn expert. If you dare to lay a finger on the Yin family, all of you will die. Haha. Inborn expert. Claps of thunderous laughter were heard. Get your inborn expert from the Yin family out then. Otherwise I'll be too bored. Haha. Suddenly the laughter took over the entire training ground. Everyone was surprised as they quickly located the source of the sound. An old man who had been standing in front of the 50 people walked out slowly. His hair was swaying even without the moving air as he exuded immense black aura from his body. The demonic aura lingered. Within a range of 10 meters in the sky, a demonic dragon roar could be heard vaguely. Gulps. Inborn. He's an inborn. An inborn showed up. That old man is actually an inborn. Gosh, the Yin family is finished. That old man is an inborn expert. Indeed, just as Jian said, he's an inborn, and he's even more daunting than those whom I've met. That imposing deposition was invincible. All the people around shuddered as they sensed the imposing demeanor of Mo Qinglong, the inborn expert with mighty and powerful oppression. The oppression made them tremble in their boots. Inborn realm, would anyone from the Yin family like to fight with me? Mo Qinglong stood beside Wang Xian and swept his cold gaze across all the members of the Yin family as he yelled. Inborn! Yin Gukong was shaking violently as despair flashed across his eyes. Everyone from the Yin family glanced at Mo Qinglong with fear and hopelessness. Just now, they were acting like they were invincible to all the martial artists in Rivertown, just like this inborn expert was doing now. But at this moment they were like those martial artists from before, feeling frightened against this group of people. They had a deeper sense of despair and fear. I heard that the Yin family was full of experts. The dragon sect would like to challenge them. Mo Yuan exuded his imposing aura and strolled behind Wang Xian. At the same time, the 50 Dragonians released their magnificent fighting spirit and disposition. Demonic aura lingered around the 50 Dragonians. As the aura gathered, they looked like an army of demons. Gosh, everybody stared at Mo Yuan and the 50 Dragonians. All of them had fear in their eyes. All of them possessed a similar demeanor to Mo Shursan. Where did this dragon sect come from? How could they be so terrifying? How can it be? Over 50 people who could crush Yin Zhongyuan. The Yin family is finished. How could it be? How could it be? Yin Gukong could not believe his eyes when he saw the demeanor displayed by the Dragonians. Yin Feng had an extremely awful look on his face. More than 50 powerful existences with a half-step to inborn and an inborn expert. Things had gone beyond his expectations. What do you want? Yin Gukong asked in a low voice with a dreadful look. Now, he did not even dare to raise his voice. He was no different from those families and martial artists just now. You were the one who invited me here. What do you think? Wang Xian looked at Yin Gukong, then turned to Yin Zhongyuan who was on the floor and Yin Feng. He asked playfully, all of you said there will be another corpse in the Bohai Sea if I offended the Yin family. You all even asked me to think of my friends. Haha. Wang Xian chuckled and stared at Yin Gukong. His expression turned cold. You tell me what I should do. His words caused embarrassment to the Yin family. If anyone dared to speak to the Yin family like this, there would be no doubt about the consequence, extermination. When they thought about it, all of them trembled. I'm the disciple of the sacred seas of swords. They have dozens of inborn experts. But this time the Yin family lost. Yin Feng said slowly as his body shook and he stared at Wang Xian. His words hinted a warning and a plead. He mentioned sacred seas of swords because he wanted to protect the Yin family. Why are you admitting defeat now? Wang Xian stared at Yin Feng and said sarcastically, didn't you want me to submit to the Yin family? And think about my friends? Besides, do you think I'll let you off when you mention sacred seas of swords? Chapter 140. He's the king of Rivertown too. Wang Xian's mocking voice resounded throughout the entire training field as everyone's attention fell on him. It was this juvenile who had offended the Yin family. Yin family had invited him over, and was preparing to teach him a lesson. However, to the Yin family's surprise, he had called along a group of terrifying people with him. The disciple of the sacred seas of swords was still arrogantly demanding his surrender to the Yin family just a while ago. As of this moment, all he could do was make empty threats and beg for forgiveness. What a huge twist of events. At this juncture, Wang Xian wouldn't even be bothered by him. So what if you are from the sacred seas of swords? Wang Xian smirked and looked at Yin Feng. Yin Feng instantly got embarrassed. Watch your words. Mo Qinglong swung his arm and dense devilish aura penetrated into Yin Feng's body directly. He didn't even have the opportunity to react when his body stiffened. You destroyed my elixir field. Yin Feng's body shivered violently. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Mo Qinglong. Oh, do you think this is over? Threatening us with the sacred seas of swords? Mo Qinglong looked emotionlessly at Yan Feng and his eyes were filled with contempt. Yan Feng's body tensed up. He had not expected this group of people to be unafraid of the sacred seas of swords, or to cripple him directly. Helplessness and despair started welling up in his heart. This was the very first time he felt such emotion since he was born. Incredible. This group of people is too strong. They aren't even flinching when dealing with a disciple of the sacred seas of swords. That old man is an inborn expert. Using sacred seas of swords as a threat wouldn't be effective. Do you really expect the sacred seas of swords to risk their men to fight with an inborn expert for Yan Feng? Inborn experts could easily rule over an area. Yan Feng's threat was simply a taunt to the old man. He has truly caused his own demise. The Yan family is finished. The surrounding martial artists and families looked at this in shock as the Dragonians walked towards the Yan family members whose faces had turned as white as sheets. Every member of the Yan family looked on in despair. Wang Xian looked across Yan Feng and his family with contempt. He walked directly to old Duan to heal his injuries before helping him up. Thank you. Thank you, my benefactor Wang Xian. Old Duan, who was previously filled with despair, was trembling in agitation and even wanted to go down on his knees to thank Wang Xian. Wang Xian patted him on his shoulders and replied, "It's all right. I leave this to you guys. I'll be waiting for you at the pavilion by the side." Wang Xian said to Mo Qinglong. "Yes, Dragon King." Mo Qinglong nodded his head respectfully. That old man was addressing that juvenile as Dragon King. An inborn expert has to be so respectful to that juvenile? What is his real identity to have an inborn expert obeying his commands? Can it be that he is from an even stronger ancient martial arts family? Upon seeing how Mo Qinglong reacted to Wang Xian, everyone around was dumbfounded. Seeing the juvenile walking freely to the pavilion and even pouring himself a cup of tea under such circumstances, they couldn't help but have even more respect for him. This was probably what they called the demeanor of a king. That insufferably arrogant Yan Feng from the Yan Feng was miles apart from this juvenile, who was unfazed by the circumstances. All he did was say a few words and smile as he watched, and he could decide the survival of your family. This difference in demeanor was distinct. Wang Xian sat within the pavilion leisurely. He had vented his frustration that had built up because of the Yan family, and what was remaining could be easily dealt with by Mo Qinglong. Mo Qinglong was from the ancient Fiend clan and would naturally know how to deal with such matters. This time, the Yan family would truly be erased from Rivertown. Great tea! Despite the incessant screams and wails, Wang Xian ignored all of them and simply focused on enjoying his tea. The tea was fragrant and made one want more of it. Wang Xian loved to drink tea and disliked drinking alcohol. This was because of the influence of his neighbor, Uncle Zhang. The Yin family's mountain villa had beautiful scenery. In front of the pavilion was a small stream. Enjoying the scenery while drinking tea was a great way for one to liven up. However, I still like to be near the seas during the spring. Moreover, I could even dive into the sea to look around when I have nothing to do. Wang Xian mumbled to himself. Dragon King. After half an hour, Mo Qinglong brought a group of people over as he reported to Wang Xian respectfully. The Dragonians didn't follow over. The group of people behind Mo Qinglong were all martial artists and families of Rivertown. Dragon King. All the martial artists and families of Rivertown hesitated for a moment before greeting Wang Xian in the same respectful manner. Wang Xian nodded his head and smiled faintly to Mo Qinglong. Are you done? Everything has been settled. Moreover, this incident won't leak out. Mo Qinglong smiled. This wasn't the doings of the Dragon sect but the doings of all the martial artists and families in Rivertown. Everyone who was present wouldn't spread this incident. They wouldn't dare to. All they had to do was to treat the Yin family as if they had never returned. The only possible issue would be Yin Feng's identity as the disciple of the sacred seas of swords. However, the Dragon sect wasn't fearful of them. Wang Xian nodded his head. Thank you, Dragon King, for breaking us free from the control of the Yin family. If the Dragon King is to encounter any issues, you could instruct our Ren family, and we wouldn't reject your request. Thank you, Dragon King. Just a word from the Dragon King and we, the martial artists of Rivertown, would risk our lives to complete your task in the future. Thank you, Dragon King. The family head of the Run family immediately thanked Wuxia. Currently, the circumstances of Rivertown had changed. This juvenile in front of him would be the ruler of the underworld of Rivertown. The remaining martial artists and families also expressed their gratitude immediately and made their loyalty pledges. Looking from another perspective, they had surrendered their services to the Dragon Sect. Dragon Sect was different from the Yen family. Dragon Sect had an inborn expert. Even if they were restricted by the Dragon Sect, they were willing to be so. When one's strength reached a level where others could only look up to them, they would not choose to resist but rather to follow. Wuxia listened to the loyalty pledges of various martial artists and families before waving his hand. Everything will be as before. Don't cause trouble in Rivertown and stay within your area. Oh right. I've opened a medical hall along Old Street. If you suffered grave injuries or have lingering injuries, you can come to me for treatment. I have to inform you guys that the fees are very high. Wuxia spoke nonchalantly. However, the martial artists and families in front of them were all shocked. What does he mean? Everything as before? Don't cause troubles? He operates a medical hall. What this would mean is that he will not be consolidating the underworld of Rivertown. He will not be declaring himself as the ruler and will not rob us of our interests. And he operates a medical hall. This. Everyone was taken aback. Every single one of them had already prepared their pledges of allegiance, prepared to lose a large portion of their interests and prepared to make Wuxia their leader. However, Wuxia wanted them to carry on as before. Thank you, Dragon King, for your compassion. Thank you, Dragon King, for your compassion. All the martial artists and families were agitated and looked at Wuxia with deep respect. They bowed down immediately as they expressed their gratitude. Wuxia smiled and waved his hand. He looked to Old Shui and said, Old Shui, look for me at my medical hall at noon tomorrow. I'll take a look at your injuries. Yes. Seeing Wuxia talking to him caringly, Old Shui got agitated. He sighed emotionally. Thank you, Brother Wuxia. Don't stand on ceremony. Everyone, I have to go. It's already past 9 p.m. and I have something in school. Wuxia smiled, turned around and left. This compassion and demeanor. In Rivertown, he's the king. If he's the king, I'm convinced. Chapter 141, Mad Dr. 1. Wuxia is different from other people. Old Shui exclaimed as he looked at Wuxia. He listened to what everyone was saying around him, and felt lucky that he managed to befriend someone who valued friendship. Old Shui knew that he was crippled by the Yen family because of Wuxia. Wuxia would surely keep this in mind. From now on, the Shui family would have a more comfortable life in Rivertown. No one dared to mess around with them. Indeed, if it were the Yen family or other families, they would get us to cough out enough interest even if they didn't rule over us. The family head of the Ren family looked at Old Shui and joked, If Old Shui needs any help, you can look for me, Ren Tianhong. Since the Shui family has such a connection with strong backing, we must have more bonding. Haha, the Shui family is lucky only. When Old Shui heard him, he chuckled and made some polite remarks. He knew that the Ren family head might sound like he was joking, but it was from the bottom of his heart too. Old Shui, you're fortunate. Yes, Old Shui. Let's find a time for a martial arts sharing session. All the martial artists and the families spoke to Old Shui fervently. Given the Shui family and that Dragon King status now, it was worth associating with them. Even though that young Dragon King did not rule the martial arts circle in Rivertown, the Dragon Sect had shown their capabilities and that none of them could be matched. Besides, they admired the Dragon King from their hearts. At least Rivertown would stay peaceful with him around. A situation like what happened in the Yen family would not happen again. It's all because of the Dragon King. They had the most heartfelt respect for him. The Dragon King said he opened a medical hall at the Old Street. Shall we pay him a visit? Yes, we should. We can go over with some gifts. But there can't be too many of us. The Dragon King might find us irritating. Why don't we gather the gifts and get old Shui or old Duan or Ren family head to send them over? This is feasible. We can prepare a huge gift as a token of appreciation under the name of all martial artists and families for the Dragon King. Today the Dragon King did us a huge favor. That's right. All the martial artists of Rivertown agreed. Sometimes that was the case. If they were being oppressed, they would put up resistance and even retaliate. But when help was rendered to them, they would be genuinely grateful and respectful. Wang Xian may not have gotten them to submit to him, but they would obey any orders from Wang Xian immediately. This was the impact of a powerful and generous man. Wang Xian, walking on the road, did not know his unintentional act had impacted the martial artists and the families in Rivertown. Wang Xian had never thought of asking them to submit to him. Not that he never thought of it, but rather he was not interested in them. The highest level they had was level 9 martial artists. With only 1 or 2 such people, what could they do? Too weak. They were so weak that Wang Xian had no intention to keep them for his use. At the same time, it was not necessary to get them to surrender some of their interests like how the Yan family had. Wang Xian disdained such intimidating practices. As a divine dragon that would roam the 9 skies in the future, he must have class. He could earn money by himself or even fish from the sea, but obtaining them through such methods, he would not stoop to it. Wang Xian was only concerned about his future businesses of the medical hall. After tonight, he believed any martial artist who was injured would look for him in the future. This could help to drive more business and make more money. Wang Xian loved the feeling of making money by himself. When he was back in school, it was already 9:30 p.m. Wang Xian quickly headed to the eastern hill. Still was not too late. He ran over with a smiling face as soon as he spotted a spark of fire lit on the eastern hill. Xiao Xian, you reached it. Have you settled all your things? Guan Shuqing asked smilingly, as though she was waiting for her husband to return. Yes, I'm here. Is the food ready? After he settled the Yan family, Wang Xian was in a chirpy mood. He squatted down and rubbed his palms while looking at the food in the cooking pot. It's almost done. It still feels more comfortable to be able to cook our own food here. The atmosphere is better here compared to eating in the first-grade restaurant. Guan Shuqing removed the lid as she smiled, blowing the steam away. Really? Then we shall have all our meals here. Wang Xian said with a smile. Sure. Guan Shuqing happily nodded her head and sat closer to Wang Xian. Wang Xian gently placed his arm over her as he smiled. Guan Shuqing was stunned for a moment with her cheeks flushed with redness, but darkness helped to conceal her blushing face. It's done. Here's Xiao Xian. Let's dig in. Guan Shuqing took the lid away happily. Great, I will help you with the shells. Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. Eastern Hill outdoor picnic. It was cozy and relaxed. No one would have thought that the dominating king from just now would be having an outdoor picnic, eating seafood with a girl. The relationship between Guan Shuqing and Wang Xian had finally been confirmed, except for not having their nuptial chamber. Wang Xian was pondering when he could proceed to the next step. Heh. The next morning, Wang Xian went to the medical hall as soon as he woke up. He opened the door and placed the signage with the rules at the entrance. Wang Xian made himself tea and took out the gifts sent from Old Shui and Old Qin the other time. Old Qin gave him a box of 100-years-old ginseng, a very precious one. On the other hand, Old Shui gave him a secret medical manual. Wang Xian was feeling bored, so he began to read the manual. This manual was obviously written by a doctor who practiced ancient martial arts. The book recorded many case studies and treatment methods. Wang Xian did not know the treatment methods. He treated people using his mighty dragon energy and the vitality of the wood attribute. Of course, there were pros and cons to this. Reading some of these medical books would benefit him when he treated others in the future. The September sun continued to shine. Wang Xian lay on the deck chair in the room with a smiling face. He sipped his tea and read his books, enjoying a relaxing afternoon. Hoo. Just then, the ambulance siren echoed through the road on the old street. Wang Xian paused and put down his teacup slowly before he went outside to have a look. Doctor! Where's the doctor? At the same time, two men barged in and raised their voices inside. Wang Xian knit his eyebrows slightly. There's no doctor here. If you have a patient, you can carry him to one of the chairs in the room. Fuck! What kind of fucking medical hall is this? The doctor recommended we go here. If they delayed my dad's treatment, I'll fucking kill them all. The middle-aged was very nasty with his words. He shouted outside, Doctor. Are you sure this is the place for treatment? Yes, this is the place. Hurry. Bring the patient in. Dr. Sun was not surprised by the poor attitude of the patient's family member. With a large number of patients in the hospital, they'd met all kinds of weirdo family members before. Chapter 142 Mad Doctor 2. If my father doesn't recover after going through so many troubles, don't blame me for being violent. A middle-aged man looked furiously at Dr. Sun and roared. Dr. Sun frowned. Sir, you have agreed to our sending him here. If it wasn't because of your recommendation, why would I send my father here? No matter what, let's cure my father before speaking. The middle-aged man said impatiently. Dr. Sun did not pay attention to the middle-aged man and said to the group of nurses, Come, carry the patient into the medical hall. All right, Dr. Sun. For nurses placed an old man on a stretcher before walking into the medical hall. Place him on the bed. Wang Xian said to the nurses, seeing them carrying a patient in. He knew that this was a referral from the hospital. Where are the attendants of the medical hall? Where's the doctor? Why isn't there any equipment around? Give my father the treatment right away. The middle-aged man followed into the medical hall, looking around and growling. Calm down. Since the hospital has sent the patient here, I'll be able to cure him. Wang Xian frowned slightly as he spoke to the middle-aged man. Hurry over and start the treatment for my father then. We can't afford any delay. Hurry up. My father's treatment has been delayed by over 10 hours. Even if he was fine previously, he won't be now. The middle-aged and 30-plus-year-old man demanded impatiently. Wang Xian frowned and walked slowly to the patient. Dr. Sun walked to Wang Xian and asked with eyes of admiration, Miracle Dr. Wang, the patient's heart is failing and his situation is dire. What our hospital could do for such dire state patient is simply extending his life by a few days. But we are not able to cure him completely. Therefore, we have sought the intentions of his family members and sent him here. Do you have any solutions? Let me take a look. Wang Xian nodded his head as he stretched his hand over and placed it on the chest of the old man. You are the doctor? So young? At this moment, a few middle-aged and young men looked at Wang Xian in shock. They had not expected the doctor of this medical hall to be a juvenile. Is he even reliable? Wang Xian ignored them and did a sensing of the old man's body. Treatment wouldn't be difficult. I can cure him. Wang Xian lifted his head as he spoke to Dr. Sunday. Miracle Dr. Wang. You are so incredible. Dr. Sun said in admiration. Wang Xian smiled and looked to the middle-aged man. His lips curved into a smile and he said, Your father's illness is curable. Really? The middle-aged man was taken aback and a little shocked. Curable? Wang Xian nodded his head. Can we kindly ask Dr. Wang to start treatment? The middle-aged man kept his temperament in check and squeezed out a smile. Payment before treatment. Wang Xian said plainly. I wouldn't pay you any less. Hurry up and treat my father before we talk about this. The middle-aged man replied unhappily. Hee. Wang Xian looked at the middle-aged man and revealed a faint smile. He walked to the chair beside him and said, $8 million for treatment. Once you've paid up, I can guarantee his recovery. If you don't pay or not have the money, just bring him out. Wang Xian sat on the chair and poured himself a cup of tea. What? $8 million. Why don't you just go and rob? The middle-aged man was shocked by Wang Xian. He flared up and pointed his fingers furiously at Wang Xian. Initially, $2 million was enough for your father's treatment. However, you have a bad attitude. It's $8 million now. Pay up if you want treatment. Otherwise, scram. Wang Xian spoke coldly to the middle-aged man in the crowd. You! The middle-aged man and the few young men were enraged. They stared hideously at Wang Xian. Brat, do you know who I am? I am giving you a warning right now. Treat my father immediately or I won't be courteous with you. Oh he. Wang Xian looked at them with mocking eyes. The price is $10 million now. Brat, you must be courting death. Green veins lifted out of the middle-aged man's arms as he walked towards Wang Xian. Sir, please calm down. Seeing the enraged middle-aged man and crowd, Director Sun quickly interrupted. Scram. Your hospital must be thinking of robbing us. A young man shouted coldly at Director Sunday. Brat, treat my father right away. Once he recovers, I'll give you $2 million. Don't test my patience. The middle-aged man walked to Wang Xian and looked down at him as he spoke solemnly. He rolled up his sleeves and revealed his tattoos. Wang Xian looked mockingly at the middle-aged man and said, $15 million. Fuck you. Diske. How dare you kick up a fuss in Divine Dragon Medical Hall? Just as the middle-aged man extended his arm and was grabbing towards Wang Xian's arm, a cold shout sounded from outside the medical hall. The middle-aged man paused and stared angrily at the entrance. However, when he saw the group of people at the entrance, his face stiffened up gradually. The middle-aged man stared at the 6 people, dumbfounded. His body couldn't help but shiver. The head of the Run family, Hu Fei of the Hu family, Old Shui, Jing and Old Duan. When his gaze met the head of the Run family, fear crept upon him. Run family used to be the #1 ancient martial artist family in Rivertown before the Yin family announced their return. The Run family had great strength and influence in the entire Rivertown. Moreover, the head of the Run family was also the director of an organization. The middle-aged man had met him once when his father brought him to a banquet. His father had warned him solemnly that the family head of the Run family could not be offended as he could annihilate them with just a wave of his hand. His father had also briefed him a little about the situation of the ancient martial arts circle in Rivertown. This petrified him. He had never expected that there was such a horrifying group of people that still existed in the current era. Why would the family head of Run family come to this medical hall? He's the leader of the #2 ancient martial artist family in Rivertown. Fear crept up to the middle-aged man. You must be courting death. At this moment, the family head of the Run family moved his palm and 2 silverish beads shot towards the middle-aged man. Art. All the middle-aged man could feel was intense pain on his knees as though they were broken. He couldn't resist the pain and landed on his knees directly. Cold sweat broke out on his head. Big brother! Big brother! The few young men ran towards the middle-aged man instinctively when they saw him going on his knees suddenly. I'm sorry, Run family head, I'm sorry. If there's something that I've done badly, I'll definitely change. The middle-aged man ignored his brother's exclamations. He immediately begged for forgiveness from the Run family head while enduring the intense pain of his legs. He didn't dare to have any sense of resistance of unhappiness. You must be looking for death to kick up a fuss in the Divine Dragon Medical Hall. Run family head shouted coldly at the middle-aged man. I'm sorry. Miracle doctor, please forgive me this time. The middle-aged man turned to face Wang Xian, kowtowed in a hurry and begged for Wang Xian's forgiveness. Wang Xian looked at the middle-aged man on his knees and shook his head in contempt. He was completely different from his arrogant self just a while ago. To cure your crippled legs, $5 million.